The task of taking apart the Mechron ship, a colossal undertaking for us, was something out of a science fiction story. To the Mechrons, an advanced mechanical civilization from the stars, their ship was merely a scout vessel. Earth had grand designs for the alien ship, but first, we needed to peel back its layers, study its secrets, and understand its technology. Humanity was eager to align this ship with our cause, just like we did with the portal, leaving no stone unturned in our quest to unlock its mysteries. Despite its daunting size, people came together, inspired not by governments, which were gradually fading into history, but by the powerful corporations that stepped up to lead. While relying solely on these corporations was a gamble, the allure of alien technology, even just scraps of alien metal, promised enormous financial returns. Ambitious ventures like the megacity projects, envisioned as self-sustaining spacefaring habitats, showcased our unchanging nature. Even faced with the threat of extinction, our fascination with wealth remained undiminished. This was the moment for Salvage Inc. to shine, a scrappy startup that gambled on a dream, sinking funds they didn't really have into a short-term lease for a slice of the Mechron ship. They were driven by the hope of striking it rich in the great tech rush, financed by a loan from Bill Enterprises. Bill, a somewhat familiar face in their circle, had made his fortune by selling knockoffs, mastering the art of reverse engineering anything he could find to produce more affordable alternatives. Despite some dubious connections best left unexplored, their venture pressed on. The crew managed to get their hands on a humble spacecraft, aptly named the Surplus Runner. Considering the necessity to ferry all their discoveries from Earth to a significant shipyard in orbit around Jupiter, securing such a vessel became a critical part of their plan. Amidst swirling rumors, there was talk of Earth commissioning its own dreadnought, a titanic warship to match the Mechron's might, just in case the alien vessel proved uncontrollable. The strategy was clear. If the ship threatened to awaken on Earth, it would be safer to confront it in the vastness of space, where, as a last resort, it could be destroyed without risking the planet. With a 300-year window before the Mechron's expected return, time seemed to be on humanity's side. Time aplenty, Nicortus Bortson would say, chuckling. As Salvage Inc.'s sole engineer and a firm believer in a shoot first, ask questions, never approach, Nicortus was as unique as they come, blending a rare mix of ingenuity and bravado. Vecca Rin stood at the helm of Salvage Inc., her venture into the unknown driven by both desperation and determination. Her striking beauty and presence belied the heavy burden of debt she carried, a debt so monumental that not even a fire sale of her internal organs would dent it. Fortunately, her skills extended beyond leadership. Enter Falair Synchron, the newest addition to the team, whose employment seemed as serendipitous as it was impromptu. Over casual beers, what began as idle chatter quickly turned into a job offer, cementing his place in the fledgling company. Nicortus, with a hint of jest in his voice, raised an eyebrow at their newest team member. Did we really need to bring Falair on board? I was under the impression we were keeping this a tight two-person gig. Vecca, caught between explanation and amusement, gave a small, unsure shrug, her voice tinged with the buzz of their recent beer-fueled decision-making. You know, it kind of just happened. After a few rounds, it seemed like a great idea. He's actually a perfect fit for what we need. She ended with a nervous chuckle, trying to dispel the tension with her laughter. Nicortus couldn't resist a playful jab, though his smile didn't quite hide his skepticism. I don't know, Vecca, he said, glancing over at Falair, who was a safe distance away, oblivious to their scrutiny. He's got that look, you know, like he could sell sand in the desert. His smile broadened, a silent acknowledgement of the unpredictable, sometimes haphazard nature of their teamwork. The dynamic among the crew was as eclectic as their backgrounds. Nicortus's amusement turned to dismay as he observed Falair's unconventional attempt at mechanical repairs, signaling a potential mismatch of skills. Then the moment of truth arrived with a flick of a switch. Vecca initiating the startup sequence of their ship, only to be greeted by Biscuit, their bargain AI from Gurgle. Biscuit's brief and colorful swearing followed by a processor malfunction was a stark reminder of the challenges ahead. The path for this trio, formed under less than auspicious circumstances, was fraught with uncertainty, yet, amidst the chaos and the comical dysfunction, they were ready to face the vast unknown. In the gritty reality of space salvage, Nicortus and Falair, well, mostly Nicortus, were entrenched in the challenge of getting their less-than-reliable spacecraft, the Bill Enterprise's surplus runner, operational. This ship, a bargain acquisition fraught with as many issues as a long-term crack habit, was their ticket to potential fortune. Vecca, ever the optimist, had gambled heavily on this venture, betting not just their futures but also, quite literally, a piece of herself. 2 kidneys to be precise. As I subtly hint at the unfolding drama, it's clear that optimism alone might not steer them clear of the looming troubles. Despite the odds, and with minimal assistance from Falir, they managed to coax the knockoff spaceship into a semblance of functionality, managing a brief sortie into orbit and back, albeit not without its share of hiccups. Docked within the cavernous expanse of the Mechron vessel, their allocated section awaited, a vast warehouse of metal crates and boxes that promised both treasure and toil. The mandate was clear: catalog everything, segregate the hazardous, adhere to the stringent protocols. The salvage operation was vast, and with the stakes so high, the risk of losing their salvage license loomed large, especially for Vecca, whose already precarious financial gamble was further complicated by the literal stake of her organs. Tasked with what seemed an insurmountable job for their small team, correction duo, Vecca's hopes hinged on a swift, lucrative find. With her connections to Bill Enterprises, she entertained visions of striking it rich and retiring to the luxurious N-Tech megacity in Europe. A dream of escape from the perilous edge they were walking to a future of ease and opulence. Yet, as they delved into the depths of their galactic endeavor, the harsh realities of space salvage threatened to eclipse the dreams that fueled their journey. 3 weeks into their venture, Vecca, Nicordus, and Faleri had made only a tiny dent in the vastness of the Mechron ship's cargo hold, cataloging a mere 0.7% of its contents. Amidst the vast sea of debris, broken gadgets, and alien artifacts of indiscernible purpose, the hunt for anything of value, let alone weapons, proved fruitless. Their discoveries, so far, amounted to nothing more than a collection of enigmatic objects, many of which might as well have been locked to alien users' DNA, if they were of any use at all. Vecca, peering around at the cluttered confines of the hangar bay, couldn't help but let out a bemused sigh. "It's gotta be," she mused aloud, the corners of her lips twitching upwards. "The Mechrons must be distant cousins of hamsters. Why else would they hoard all these bits and bobs in such a random place?" Nicordus, leaning against a nearby console, cast a thoughtful glance over the scattered technology. "You know," he started, adopting the tone of someone about to divulge a well-kept secret. "I came across a wild theory that they don't actually come up with any of their tech on their own. They scavenge, find what works, and then fold it into their own designs. Imagine that, letting your adversaries do all the hard work, only to swoop in and claim the fruits of their labor." Vecca's response was immediate, her voice laced with a mix of amusement and incredulity. "Space hamsters," she declared, an assertive nod accompanying her newfound term for their intergalactic adversaries. "Our planet got a taste of cosmic rodents." Biscuit's sudden beep over the intercom made Vecca jump, her nerves already frayed over the thought of losing her kidneys. The AI's reminder that they had only a week left to uncover something valuable added to her stress, urging them to hurry up. Nicordus, ever laid back, seemed unfazed, joking again about having time o'plenty. He was blissfully unaware of the gravity of their situation, not fully grasping the precarious position Vecca had put them in. Falere, on the other hand, was there primarily to oversee their investment, making sure they didn't attempt to dodge their financial obligations. Vecca's frustration reached a peak when she kicked a small box, causing it to spill its contents across the cold metal floor. Among the scattered items, a device started to hum to life. Vecca, driven by a mix of desperation and hope, quickly picked it up. Her eyes lit up with the possibility of their find as the others gathered around to see. At that moment, Biscuit, in her typical rude manner, beeped again, announcing the detection of an unfamiliar type of matter particle. The startle from Biscuit's alert caused Vecca to drop the device, its indicator lights ominously transitioning from green to red. Falir chimed in with a deadpan delivery that only he could manage. "I think red means bad," he stated, his tone dry enough to suggest he might be on the brink of discovering fire. The simplicity of his observation, in stark contrast to the tension of the moment, couldn't help but draw a brief, incredulous laugh from the others. Before any further speculation or jest could be made, a sudden whoosh enveloped them, a sound marking the beginning of an unforeseen event. In an instant, Biscuit's audience vanished, leaving the AI to voice its growing irritation into the void. The trio, through a twist of fate catalyzed by their latest find, found themselves propelled into an unknown situation, their whereabouts a mystery. Biscuit, with her digital voice echoing slightly in the suddenly quiet space. "Hello? Anyone?" Then the AI went on a rant that would make a sailor blush, before overheating its processor yet again, shutting down. Transported by the mysterious device's activation, Vecca, Nicordus, and Philaire found themselves unceremoniously deposited into a setting far removed from the confines of the Mechron vessel they had been scouring. The darkness enveloped them, a stark contrast to the clinical, albeit cluttered, environment they had left behind. The stale air and decrepit surroundings hinted at a place long forgotten, with only the faintest light providing any sense of direction. Philaire's voice broke through the darkness, tinged with annoyance and disbelief. "Who turned the fucking lights off?" It was a shout that seemed to bounce off the walls, filled with the kind of exasperation one might reserve for a sudden, unwelcome plunge into darkness. Nicordus, with a calmer expression, responded with a hint of dry humor in his voice. "I don't think this is the Mechron ship, guys." The sudden activation of emergency lighting revealed a grim scene. Vecca's voice was a whisper of disbelief, barely audible over the eerie silence that enveloped them. "Definitely not where we used to be, for sure," she stated, her eyes wide as they took in the grim tableau before them. The shock of finding themselves amidst a sprawling graveyard of human corpses within the confines of a ship, a metal tomb floating in the void of space, was palpable. The way she stood, still, almost holding her breath, spoke volumes of the unexpected and possibly unsettling sight before her, highlighting the stark contrast between this place and anywhere they had been before. Her hand reached out, almost involuntarily, to knock against the cold, unyielding metal of the hull, a hollow sound echoing back as if to confirm their grim reality. "We're definitely still inside a ship," she said, her voice steadier now, but laced with a haunting realization. Nicordus, ever observant, joined in, his gaze shifting beyond the immediate horror to the vista outside. "In space, there's a planet down there, but that's not Earth, guys." His addition painted a fuller picture of their predicament, marooned on a vessel of terrestrial origin, but adrift in an alien star system, surrounded by the remnants of a tragedy. The pressing question of their whereabouts was soon overshadowed by more immediate concerns, the circumstances leading to the ship's fate, and whether the architects of its demise were still lurking nearby. The discovery of the ship's name, Requiem, were scattered across items and uniforms amidst the desolation. They noticed that all the fallen crew members had the same device as theirs, on their belt. Vecca's realization that these devices, identical to the one that had spirited them away, were meant for emergency teleportation back to the ship. The very fact that their own device had transported them to this forsaken vessel raised more questions than answers. Was their arrival a mere fluke of cosmic proportions, or had they been deliberately chosen to bear witness to this grim tableau? The mystery of the device's origin and its presence among the Mechron salvage deepened the enigma. With the ship's emergency power still humming in the background, a testament to its lingering will to survive, the trio pressed on toward the bridge, driven by a mix of dread and determination. Vecca's fleeting glimpses of movement in the periphery of her vision stoked the embers of fear and wonder alike. Her voice carried a mix of jest and unease as she broke the silence. "I think we aren't alone, guys." Nicordus, quick to play along, matched her tone with a wry smile. "It's a good thing we aren't armed then," he quipped back, the humor in his voice tinged with sarcasm. "Maybe it was just a false alarm." His words, though spoken in jest, carried the unspoken hope that their fears were unfounded. As they navigated through the corridors of the Requiem, its design evoked a sense of nostalgia and alienness, marrying the familiar aesthetics of televised science fiction with the stark reality of their situation. Then, as if summoned by their very presence, a voice cut through the silence, anchoring them to the moment. It was the Requiem's automated warning system alerting them to the impending descent into the planet's atmosphere. Nicordus, ever the optimist in the face of impending doom, couldn't help but find a silver lining, even as their situation teetered on the edge of dire. "Well, that's not good," he started, his voice laced with an unmistakable hint of irony. "But still, we have 3 hours. That's time, plenty to see if we can get this ship flying again." The treacherous journey to the bridge, hampered by the ship's dilapidated state and the eerie silence punctuated by intermittent power failures, did little to prepare them for the sight that awaited. The bridge, a command center frozen in time and tragedy, was populated by the remains of the crew, mutated beyond recognition, yet mercifully inert, posing no threat. The lack of security measures on the terminals, while fortunate, underscored the gravity of the Requiem's final hours, as the crew had likely abandoned protocol in a desperate bid for survival. Commander Atlas Vale's greeting from the archives, introducing them to the Requiem as a military vessel of the N-Tech Earth Defense Force, presented a conundrum that challenged their understanding of their own world. The notion that the Requiem, and by extension, the NDF, was an entity outside their historical and dimensional knowledge, suggested that they had stumbled upon a fragment of an alternate reality, where N-Tech, or N-Tech as it vaguely resonated with Vecca, had evolved differently. The corrupted logs hinted at a narrative filled with gaps, yet they pieced together enough to ascertain that the Requiem had been adrift for an unfathomable duration, its mission and ultimate downfall lost to the void. The deliberate erasure of the AI system hinted at a catastrophic failure or a final desperate measure taken by the crew. As Vecca and Falaire delved deeper into the ship's logs, their search for operational systems and any clue to the Requiem's mission and fate became a race against time. The possibility that this ship was from another dimension or era entirely opened up as many questions as it did avenues for escape. With the ship's descent marking a finite timeline for their survival, the urgency to unearth the Requiem's secrets and find a means to avert their fiery end grew increasingly dire. Nicordus had a knack for drifting away, often led by curiosity without a moment's notice. This time, his wandering gaze found a beacon in the dim, an engineering terminal that seemed to whisper promises of untold stories. As he coaxed the console to life, revealing schematics that danced with possibilities, he discovered the heart of the vessel, a Trion drive. The realization that they were aboard a ship that dwarfed Earth's technological achievements with its advanced capabilities, plasma shields, dark matter weapons, and long-distance quantum teleportation, was staggering. It was as if the boundaries of their reality had expanded, embracing the realm of science fiction. The ship, despite its size, appeared almost modest next to the gargantuan Mechron vessel, yet what it contained within its metal skeleton was nothing short of extraordinary. The power it promised to wield was akin to harnessing the fury of a small star. With a few deft touches, Nicordus awakened the Trion drive, its hum a signal of life coursing through the ship's veins. As lights flickered on and the canopy retracted to reveal the scars of space travel, asteroid impacts that told tales of narrow escapes and silent battles, the ship stood defiant, battered yet unbroken, ready to carve its path through the stars once more. The realization that they had stumbled upon technology far surpassing anything known to current Earth standards ignited a spark of hope and ambition within the trio. Particularly for Vecca, as she quipped, "Well, if this isn't great salvage, I don't know what else is," seeing in the Requiem not just a means of survival, but a potential treasure trove that could redefine humanity's place in the cosmos. Falaire's question, laced with a mix of hope and weariness, broke the tension. "Well, it's nice, so when can we go home?" Nicordus, teetering on the edge of a response, found himself momentarily caught in the gravity of the situation. His thoughts raced, crafting the perfect retort, but before the words could take flight, the ship's computer coldly cut in, T-minus 60 minutes before total loss of vessel. The sterile announcement hung between them like a guillotine's blade. Vecca, quick to grasp the urgency, shot Nicordus a look that mixed encouragement with a dash of sarcasm. "You might want to get on that, Nicordus, or we'll be experiencing the atmosphere's temperature challenge up close and personal," she quipped, a nervous chuckle barely veiling the seriousness of their predicament. "Backwards, given how we're angled," she added. Falaire, ever the optimist, or perhaps just clinging to a shred of denial, shrugged off the dire warnings with a cavalier remark. "How hard can it be, right? Press some knobs, pull some levers, easy." It's fortunate that Nicordus has such a laid-back personality. Otherwise, if we suddenly found ourselves in need of someone to test the airlock, I think it's pretty clear who'd be first in line for that risky job. And no, he wouldn't even be getting a spacesuit for the ordeal. Their focus was razor-sharp as they navigated the complexities of the ship's controls, a task made all the more pressing by the ship's computer, which solemnly counted down the time they had left, T-minus 10 minutes. Just when the situation seemed most dire, Nicordus, with a mixture of hope and determination, announced he had cracked the console. "Got it," he said, a confident smile in his voice. "This is how it works, guys. Pretty damn sure about it." And with that, he initiated the thrusters, unwittingly setting them on a backward trajectory towards the planet. The computer's voice, calm and unchanging, marked T-minus 5 seconds, ramping up the tension. Vecca's reaction was immediate and unfiltered, her gaze sharp enough to rival the edge of a knife, silently screaming, "What the heck, dude?" as the realization hit them that they were, quite literally, going the wrong way. "How should I know this was reverse?" Nicordus exclaimed, his voice a blend of surprise and frustration as he hurriedly corrected their course, shifting into forward gear. The ship, groaning under the stress of sudden movement, began to shudder as if shaking off years of inertia, narrowly escaping the planet's gravitational embrace. The crew's relief at averting disaster was short-lived, as they faced the daunting task of assessing the Requiem's extensive damages. The realization that they were now adrift in an unknown system, with a barely operational ship that boasted technology far beyond their understanding, set the stage for their next challenge. As they meticulously navigated through the ship's battered corridors, the team took stock of the damages, prioritizing repairs that needed to be addressed before they could even think about pushing the limits of their newfound propulsion system. The Trion drive, a piece of technology that seemed to flirt with the edges of the Triverse theory, a concept that, until their adventure, had not been fully understood or confirmed, promised capabilities far beyond traditional FTL drives. But understanding exactly how it functioned remained a mystery for another time. Their immediate concern was coaxing it into working well enough to guide them home. Their exploration led them to a revelation, one that sparked more questions than answers. Tucked away within the ship was a portal device, seamlessly integrated into the ship's framework, a stark contrast to the makeshift device they had encountered on the Mechron ship. This discovery begged the question, if the Mechrons possessed technology capable of instantaneously bridging the vast expanses of space, why did they rely on slower, more conventional means of travel? Upon closer inspection, they found that the portal was cocooned within multiple force fields, a safeguard perhaps, activated by the Trion drive's reawakening. How the ship managed to sustain such a drain without a conventional power source was yet another riddle. It seemed to draw power from the portal itself, a symbiosis of energy and matter that defied their current understanding of physics. 3 months flew by, each day melding into the next, as they poured their efforts into making the ship their own. Despite humanity's aspirations for peace, their primal instinct for survival kicked in first. The trio made sure to arm themselves, scavenging the ship for any working weapons and armor. Gradually, through their tireless work, the ship began to resemble something that could be called home. But back on the bridge, the Trion drive's efficiency, or corruption, as the display dubiously indicated, hovered at 64%, a figure they hoped was a quirk in the system, rather than an accurate measure of its reliability. Shields hummed back to life. Yet, for all their progress, their exact position in the cosmos remained a mystery, a question mark that lingered over their heads like an uncharted constellation. The ship's logs, when pieced back together, unveiled a harrowing story of its previous occupants, a narrative stained with tragedy. Commander Vale, having escaped his ship on one of its shuttles, emerged as the sole survivor of an ordeal that turned his crew into nothing short of nightmares, victims of a virulent outbreak that ravaged flesh and mind alike. The entries hinted at experimentation with biotechnology, ambitious, perhaps reckless, and ultimately catastrophic. Yet, amid the shadows of the past, the crew of Salvage Inc. saw glimmers of hope. They understood the ship's potential and its dangers, recognizing the fine line between discovery and disaster. As they moved forward, the weight of the ship's history rested on their shoulders. Drifting off course in their conversations, they mused over the possibility of the Mechron having been on the ship. The thought alone was unsettling, yet they found solace in the evidence, or lack thereof. If the mechanical invaders had boarded, their presence would have been undeniable, marked by chaos and destruction. But the ship was silent, save for the ghosts of its past. No Mechron marauders, no lingering threats, not even the whisper of a virus. It was a relief, though the sealed and abandoned sections of the ship whispered tales of caution, reminding them of dangers unknown and unseen. In a moment of boldness or perhaps whimsy, they decided it was time to test the capabilities of the Trion drive. Vecca, with a spark of excitement in her eyes, eased into the captain's chair. There was a gravity to her actions, a childhood dream unfolding as she uttered the command she'd always imagined saying, "Engage." The anticipation was palpable as the ship hummed to life, a portal swirling into existence before them, a doorway to the stars, to possibilities. But as they began their tentative journey through the portal, the ship's computer, ever the harbinger of unwelcome news, blared out a stark warning. Error, portal safety systems offline, followed by an even more unsettling alert. Warning, non-human life form, on board, detected. The realization that they were not alone, that something or someone else was with them, transforming their moment of triumph into the onset of a new, unforeseen challenge. The void of space was never silent, at least not on the Requiem. The hum of the ship's systems played a continuous, low-key symphony, a backdrop to the crew's tense preparations. Vecca Rin, Necordus Bortson, and Falere Synchrone stood on the bridge, Rin's eyes flickering between the shimmering portal ahead and the myriad of warning lights that danced across the dashboard like fireflies at dusk. "Status report!" Rin demanded, her voice steady but laced with the stress of impending decisions. The soft clinking of tools and the occasional heavy sigh from Necordus filled the gap before the response came. "Portal's stable, but the portal drive, it's eating up power like there's no tomorrow, as if it's eating its own tail," reported Necordus. He wiped grease-stained hands on his jumpsuit before tapping a gauge that stubbornly refused to show any signs of encouragement. "This isn't going well." From the corner, Falere watched the numbers on the screen with a furrowed brow. "We could shut down non-essential systems, buy ourselves some extra juice," he suggested, more to the screens than to anyone in particular. Rin considered this, her gaze fixed on the swirling colors of the portal. It looked like a painting, beautiful, but somehow threatening. "Do it. Let's keep our eyes on the prize." The click of switches and the hum of powering down equipment followed her command. The ship grew perceptibly quieter, the lights dimming. It was then that the computer decided to contribute more heart-stopping news. "Alert. Non-human life form detected on board." The voice of the computer was impersonal, the statement echoing ominously through the now quieter bridge. A tense silence fell over the crew. Rin's heart skipped a beat, but her face remained an unreadable mask. "Necordus? Falere? Thoughts?" Falere shrugged, an edge of humor in his voice despite the situation. "Well, unless one of us has drastically changed overnight, I'd say we have an intruder." Necordus snorted dismissively, already striding toward the terminal to activate the internal sensors. "Let's find our friend then," he declared, his tone edged with a mock sternness. "Can't have anyone or anything messing around uninvited." As he spoke, he began to adjust his weapon, mimicking the motion of loading it with an exaggerated flourish. From the corner, Falere couldn't suppress a chuckle. "It's an energy weapon, Necordus. You don't need to load it." Catching the comment, Necordus turned and shot Falere a look that was both annoyed and amused. "Oh, shut it." The screen flickered to life under Necordus's skilled fingers, showing blips and blobs that represented different parts of the ship. There, in the engine room, a small, unexplained blip. "Got something," he murmured. Rin left the helm to join him. The image on the screen was grainy, but it was definitely not human, its edges too sharp, its shape too irregular, and its armor too shiny. "That's no friendly. That's a Mechron," she said quietly, a chill running down her spine. The realization settled in with a heavy weight. This entity, an actual Mechron, where did it come from? This was not just an inert piece of technology, but potentially something much more significant and dangerous. "We need to secure it," Rin decided, her voice carrying a new urgency. Nicordus, gear up. You're with me. Falere, keep the ship stable and monitor that portal. Don't have too much fun without me, Falere quipped, though his eyes remained glued to the portal's readings. With a nod to each other, Rin and Nicordus prepared to confront whatever awaited them in the engine room. The corridors of the Requiem felt colder, the usual clanks and drones of the ship more ominous as they moved. As they approached, the door to the engine room slid open with a hiss. The back of Rin's neck prickled, her hand instinctively going to the blaster at her side. Inside, the chaos of wires and metal did little to hide the silhouette of the Mechron, its form still. Rin raised her blaster, her other hand signaling Nicordus to circle around and under no circumstance fire his weapon without her consent. Nicordus rolled his eyes in frustration, clearly not thrilled with the restrictions. With a reluctant nod, he agreed, muttering under his breath about the limits now placed on his usual rapid-fire, no fucks given approach. Fine. No surprise ammo dumps, he conceded grudgingly. The entity remained motionless, its silence a stark contrast to the subtle creaks of the ship around them. Seems peaceful, Rin muttered, not taking her eyes off it. Or it's a really good actor, Nicordus countered, his voice tinged with suspicion. He cautiously extended a stick toward the object, adopting what he considered a poking a sleeping bear technique. Rin watched, her eyes widening in disbelief at his boldness. Seriously, Nicordus? Her expression seemed to shout, a mix of astonishment and irritation. Nicordus looked back at her with a nonchalant shrug, his face betraying a hint of mischief. What could possibly go wrong? He quipped, clearly underestimating the potential consequences of his actions. He continues. Looks like it's just in power-saving mode. Also, Rin, have you ever seen them this small? It's smaller than the size of a human? Nicordus, after a short moment, looking at it. He announced, Want me to see if I can wake it up? Rin nodded, keeping her blaster steady while moving backwards. It's a Mechron. Then sighs. Okay, you know what? Do it. Let's find out if our metal friend here can be an ally. If not, I will blast it. Telling him that all the while being on the other end of the room, far away from any immediate danger. As Nicordus poked the robot, its lights flickered on. It stirred, a low hum building from its core, a sound eerily the same as the portal's own sounds. Rin watched, fascinated and cautious, as the Mechron slowly came to life. Its first words, when they came, were garbled, but shortly after it awoke, they became clearer. Help. Me. The words were unexpected, imbued with an electronic quality but unmistakably pleading. Rin exchanged a look with Nicordus, both understanding the weight of the moment. All right, Rin said softly, stepping forward from cover. We'll help, but you need to help us too. Back on the bridge, Falere watched as the power levels began to stabilize. A small smirk was evident on his face. Looks like they fixed it, whatever they did, he murmured, eyes on the now stable portal that held the promise of unknown futures. In the dimly lit engine room of the Requiem, the newly awakened Mechron, its surface a smooth chrome metal, stood quietly. The initial plea for help had transformed the atmosphere from one of cautious hostility to tentative alliance. Rin, with her hand still on her blaster, watched the entity intently, trying to decipher its intentions. All right, let's keep this simple, Rin suggested, her tone a mix of command and diplomacy. You need help. We might need your help. First, tell us what you are doing here, on the ship. The entities struggled, as if it were processing her words, or perhaps struggling to form a response. After a moment, it spoke again, its voice clearer than before, but still tinged with static. Critically damaged during portal transfer. Need urgent repairs then. Find Prime. Rin thinking to herself, who or what the fuck is Prime? Nicordus, hovering over his portable diagnostic tool, nodded slightly. Looks like it came through the portal all right, when our portal drive had a hiccup. Might have been trying to escape, something. He glanced at Rin. Could be useful, knowing what it knows. Falere's voice crackled through their communicators, a hint of impatience threading his words. Everything okay down there? We're stable, but that doesn't mean I want to wait around all day. Rin rolled her eyes slightly, a brief smile breaking her stern facade. We're making friends, Falaire. Or die trying to, she said softly, only to herself. Keep the ship steady a little longer, will you? Back in the engine room, Rin approached the entity, her movements measured. What do you need? Can you guide us on how to assist you? The Mechron responded with a panel on its chest sliding open to reveal intricate circuits and glowing cores. Assistance. Module repair. Energy stabilization needed. Portal travel, disrupted power, flow. Nicordus whistled softly, peering into the open panel. It's like looking under the hood of a car, only the car is from a few centuries in the future, or another galaxy. He fetched his toolkit, his curiosity piqued. Let's see what we can do. As Rin watched Nicordus work, she pondered the potential knowledge and technology this Mechron entity could share. It was a gamble, trusting something from a civilization they knew next to nothing about, except their ruthless destruction, but the potential rewards were too great to ignore. The repairs were meticulous and slow. Nicordus, with guidance from the entity, adjusted and repaired components that were beyond their understanding, yet strangely intuitive. The entity's body language, if it could be called that, suggested gratitude and relief as each repair was made. You know, I never thought I'd be a mechanic for an alien robot, Nicordus joked as he tightened a component. Rin kept a watchful eye on the process, her mind racing through the possibilities. Once you're operational, we need information. Anything about this portal, or your kind, maybe tech that could help us get home. The entity's lights stabilized, a sign that Nicordus's repairs were effective. Information available. Sharing now. It extended a limb, connecting with a port on the wall. Data streamed onto the main screen, diagrams and schematics flooding the display. Looks like we hit the jackpot, Rin said, examining the data. With the entity now somewhat mobile and cooperative, they made their way back to the bridge. Rin felt a mix of apprehension and excitement. They were in uncharted territory, on a ship they knew next to nothing about, and a Mechron in tow, humanity's #1 enemy. Although this one looked a lot more autonomous than the ones that brought destruction to our planet. As they entered the bridge, Falaire turned from his console, eyebrows raised in surprise. Looks like you made more than friends. You brought back a walking encyclopedia. The entity moved to the central console, interfacing directly with the ship's systems. Data flowed seamlessly now, and Rin could see Falaire's demeanor change from skepticism to intrigue as he watched the incoming information. Okay, let's see if we can use all this data to our advantage, Falaire mused. Rin nodded, her gaze fixed on the star map displayed on the screen. Set course for the portal's horizon, she instructed. The journey ahead was fraught with danger, but the alliance with the Mechron entity offered a glimmer of hope, a chance not only for survival, but for understanding a fraction more of the vast universe they occupied. The Requiem trembled, a soft shudder that ran through its metal bones as it approached the swirling vortex of the portal. Rin stood firm, her eyes locked on the view screen where the portal's vibrant colors danced like wild flames against the backdrop of deep space. All right, everyone, this is it. Hold on to whatever you can. Falaire, managing the navigation console, adjusted the trajectory with meticulous care. If this data is even half as accurate as it looks, we should be golden. Should being the keyword here. Nicordus, who had taken up a position beside the Mechron entity, watched the data stream in real time. You know, for a Mechron, you're pretty handy, he muttered to the entity, but the entity didn't respond. The Mechron interfaced seamlessly with the ship's systems, upgrading their operations. Systems integration at 95%, it declared, its voice devoid of the earlier static. Portal passage will commence in 3, 2, 1. As the ship entered the portal, reality seemed to warp around them. The bridge was bathed in a surreal glow, and the crew felt a momentary weightlessness, a sensation that made Rin's stomach churn. Outside, the stars disappeared, and the fabric of space itself seemed to fold, a visual spectacle that defied understanding. Everyone still with me? Rin called out, gripping the edge of her console as gravity reasserted itself abruptly. Just about, Falaire responded, his voice tinged with awe. That was smoother than I expected, but we're not out of the woods yet. No time for tea, Rin quipped back, a smile flickering momentarily as she focused on their path. Let's keep our eyes on the here and now. Falaire, what's our exit vector look like? Falaire, engrossed in his readings, adjusted a few settings before replying. Coming up on the exit now. Brace for re-entry into normal space. It's going to get bumpy. The transition out of the portal was indeed more violent than their entry. The ship bucked as if trying to throw off an unwelcome rider, and the crew was pressed hard against their restraints. Lights flickered overhead, and somewhere in the back a panel clattered to the floor while sparks flew everywhere. We made it! Falaire exclaimed as the chaos settled and the view screen showed a star field that was unfamiliar yet stable. I'm not seeing any black holes, rogue comets, or dinosaur planets. I'd call that a win. Nicordus released a sigh. And here I was, halfway hoping for a T-Rex pet. The Mechron seemed to process their banter, its menacing lights dimming and then brightening as if in understanding. Rin allowed herself a moment of relief before turning to the task at hand. We need to figure out where we are, and whether it's anywhere near where we want to be. Falaire, start scanning for any recognizable star formations. Nicordus, keep an eye on the ship's systems. Make sure our ride through the portal didn't leave us with any nasty surprises. As Falaire set to work, his fingers moving deftly over the controls, Rin walked over to the Mechron. You did good, she told it sincerely. Thanks to you, we might just get home. With the portal closing behind them, they turned their eyes toward the starlit expanse before them. The vastness of space, which had always seemed so indifferent and unforgiving, now loomed as an even greater enigma before the crew of the Requiem. Rin stood by the observation deck, her eyes scanning the infinite array of stars displayed before her. Any luck with those stars, Falaire? Rin called over her shoulder, her voice echoing slightly in the quiet of the command deck. Falaire, absorbed in his work at the navigation console, responded without looking up. It's like trying to find a specific grain of sand on a cosmic beach. None of these formations are familiar. We might as well be in a completely different galaxy. The Mechron spoke. Universe? Not real, Mirrorverse. Rin looking at the robot. Not real? The what now? But it didn't respond to her question. Nicordus, who was checking the ship's external sensors, added, or maybe a different time. Who knows what side effects jumping a starship through a portal might include? Rin turned to face them, her expression serious. Time travel theories aside, we need to establish our position and figure out a plan. We're running low on the supplies we didn't have to begin with. We need to find a habitable planet or a friendly outpost. Fast. The Mechron, which had been interfacing with the ship's systems, suddenly spoke up again. Data analysis suggests nearest habitable system approximately 3 light-years from current coordinates. Proposing course adjustment. Try and drive use suggested for jump. Falaire, checking the controls, responds, Yeah, the ship seems to have a try and drive all right. 3 light-years, huh? Rin mused, considering their options. Looks like our best shot. Falaire, plot the course and use this drive instead of the portal drive. Falaire's responded, setting new trajectory. There, course laid in. It's a good thing our mysterious friend here has a knack for finding needles in haystacks. Nicordus chuckled. As the Requiem set course for the system, the crew busied themselves with various tasks. Nicordus and Rin went down to the engine room to assess the damage of their main systems, while Falaire and the Mechron entity remained on the bridge to monitor their progress and keep an eye on external conditions. The engine room of the Requiem was a maze of pipes, while wires were strewn everywhere, like a battle had been fought here and something had been connected to the wires, forcefully getting decoupled by gunfire. Nicordus led the way, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. See here, he said, pointing to a series of gauges. These conduits all took some pretty serious weapon damage. Some were even severed. It's a miracle they still work. If I reroute the flow through this secondary conduit, it will be safer. Rin watched as Nicordus worked, his hands sure and swift. Do what you can. Every little bit helps. Above them, Falaire watched the star map, tracking their progress toward salvation. The Mechron entity updated him periodically with system updates. Despite the dire circumstances, Falair found himself oddly reassured by the presence of their alien ally. Not bad to have a Mechron ally. The Mechron spoke. Probability of reaching destination, 98%. 98%, Falair repeated, a wry smile on his face. I've taken worse odds at the card tables. Back in the engine room, Rin and Nicordus wrapped up their repairs. As they made their way back to the bridge, Rin couldn't help but feel a surge of pride in her crew. They were far from home, possibly lost in an unknown part of the universe, yet they were handling it with a grit and determination that was the hallmark of spacefarers. Ready to see if your tweaks paid off? Rin asked, clapping Nicordus on the shoulder. As ready as we'll ever be, Nicordus replied, taking his station. Falair nodded, his eyes fixed on the forward screen. Let's find out what's waiting for us at the end of this jump. The starlight was a mere streak across the vast canvas of the universe as the Requiem hurtled toward the habitable system identified by the Mechron with its Trion drive, a sort of hybrid FTL drive that doesn't use a portal to get around normal space. Rin stood by the main console, her eyes scanning the readouts, constantly assessing the time estimated to reach the new system. Falair, give me an update on our ETA. Falair toggled through the screens with practiced ease. We're looking at approximately 6 hours to arrival at optimal speed. This drive is fast as fuck. Nicordus, tinkering with a panel beneath the console, grunted in agreement. We might want to prepare for a manual shutdown of the engines when we enter the system. Will give us a little bit more cover. Just in case. The Mechron entity, its interface cables connected to the navigation system, pulsed with a steady red light. Assistance is possible. I can optimize the ship's power flow to reduce our signature by an additional 3.7%. Rin nodded, appreciative of the unexpected boon. Do it. Every little bit helps, and right now, I'd welcome a miracle in any form it chooses to appear. As the entity worked, its body humming softly, Falair watched with a mix of fascination and wariness. You know, I never thought I'd trust a Mechron. Nicordus chuckled, his head still inside the panel. There's a first time for everything. Besides, it hasn't steered us wrong yet. Falair, ever the cynic. The key word here is yet. I am keeping my blaster under my pillow, just in case. Rin paced slowly behind them, her thoughts racing as fast as her steps. The promise of reaching a habitable planet was more than just a simple mission objective. It was a beacon of hope for the entire human race. Not only did they acquire a state-of-the-art advanced starship, finding another Earth-like planet would mean it could be used to relocate towards. She turned to Falair and Nicordus, her voice firm yet imbued with a rare softness. Once we land, keep your guard up. We don't know what we'll find, and while our friend here has been helpful, we're still in uncharted territory. Falair nodded, his gaze settling on the forward viewport where the distant stars shone brightly against the void. I've seen enough sci-fi to know that paradise planets aren't always what they seem. Nicordus emerged from the panel, wiping his hands on a rag. Let's just hope it's not one of those eat the humans kind of places, he said, half joking, half serious. The ship continued on its path, now slightly quieter with the Mechron adjustments taking effect. The red light of its body cast ghostly shadows across the deck, creating an eerie, otherworldly glow. Rin returned to the viewport, her eyes reflecting the starlight. We need a plan for when we arrive. Nicordus, ensure all systems are green. Falair, find out if this ship can enter an atmosphere and stay in the air. I don't want to find out if flies like a brick. We need to be ready to move quickly, whether it's to explore or to make a quick getaway. Falair turned back to his console. Let me send in some drones, see what we are working with, then maybe start running simulations to find the best approach vector. The Mechron suddenly pulsed a brighter shade of red, then spoke out, preparing for planetary analysis. Nicordus looked over at the entity with a newfound respect. You might just be the MVP of this trip, you know that? He continued. By the way, what should we call you? The entity's lights flickered, as if thinking about a name, but not yet responding. Rin watched the interaction, a slight smile breaking through her usual stoic demeanor. Keep it up, and we might just consider making you a permanent member of the crew. As the Requiem approached the planet, The atmosphere among the crew was thick with a mix of excitement and nervousness. They busied themselves with final checks and preparations, each member keenly aware of the historic nature of their mission. They were potentially the first humans to explore this distant system, setting foot on a pristine alien world in a starship that came from the future, accompanied by an improbable ally. In the camaraderie of their bustling preparations, Nicordus joked, lightening the mood. If this were an RPG, we'd definitely have rolled a critical 20 for everything to line up this perfectly. The comment drew a round of chuckles, a moment of levity, as they faced the unknown together. The possibility of finding a new Earth-like planet was tantalizing, but the unknowns loomed large. As they prepared to face whatever awaited them on this new world, the new crew of the Requiem knew that the next few hours could change everything. Then the Mechron entity broke the silence, its voice resonating with a metallic clarity. My designation is Monger. Falir, eyebrows raised, couldn't help but respond quickly. That's too much of a coincidence to not be Warmonger. Rin turned to glance at Nicordus, catching the wry shrug he offered her, a look that said, "Seems like a perfect fit for our little group, doesn't it?" Little did they know just how accurate that observation would turn out to be. As the Requiem glided through the vastness of space, the anticipation aboard grew tangible. The silhouettes of distant celestial bodies began to take form against the dark backdrop, hinting at the nearing habitable system that the Mechron entity called Monger had promised. Rin stood at the command module, surveying the data streaming in, her eyes reflecting both the stars and the weight of responsibility. Are the modifications holding up? Rin asked, her voice steady despite the underlying stress. Nicordus, who had been monitoring the engine's performance closely, nodded. The reroute is working better than expected, he said, while giving her a thumbs up. Falir chimed in from his station, where he was fine-tuning their approach vector. Speaking of the planet, we're about to get our first real look at it, bringing it up on the main screen now. The crew gathered around as the image of a verdant world filled the viewport. Swirls of white clouds, vast expanses of green, and deep blue oceans painted a welcoming picture, a stark contrast to the cold look of space. It's beautiful, Rin murmured, allowing herself a moment of awe. Looks promising. Let's not get too comfortable, though. Falir, prep for atmospheric entry. Nicordus, you're on sensors. Let's find out if it's as friendly as it looks. Monger, which had been silently interfacing with the ship's systems, suddenly illuminated a brighter hue. Planetary analysis indicates optimal conditions for human life. Some threat levels detected from initial scans. Caution is advisable. Damn it. It's going to be an eat the humans planet. Mark my words, Nicordus quipped, as he adjusted the thermal shields for atmospheric entry. Here's to hoping the locals are as welcoming as the scenery. As the Requiem sliced through the atmosphere at breakneck speeds, Falir was taken aback. Against all odds, the readings were still green. A surprising feat, given that any other vessel would have disintegrated under such intense conditions. Rin gave a brief nod, her focus shifting back to the task at hand. As they began their descent, the ship, due to atmospheric friction heating the external panels to a bright white glow visible through the side view screens. Falir kept his eyes glued to the sensor readouts, watching for any signs of turbulence or unexpected meteorological phenomena. Systems look manageable. I'm picking up some strong wind patterns in the northern hemisphere, but nothing this starship can't handle. The descent was smoother than any of them had dared hope, with the ship's engines compensating perfectly for the planet's gravitational pull. As they broke through the cloud layer, sprawling landscapes rolled out beneath them, dotted with what looked like forests and meandering rivers. Find us a nice spot to land, somewhere with a good view, Rin said, the corners of her mouth twitching upwards in a rare display of humor amid tension. Nicordus, busy at his console, responded without looking up. How about next to that lake there? Looks like it's got beachfront property. The Requiem touched down gently on a flat plain near the edge of a vast forest, overlooking a sparkling blue lake. The landing gears deployed with a solid thump, anchoring them to this new world. All right, we're down. Everyone take a moment to breathe, Rin announced, her voice betraying relief. Monger, can you do a final sweep for any hazards or basically anything that might want to eat us? The entity's lights pulsed methodically as it conducted its scans. The immediate vicinity is clear of large biological threats. Caution is recommended until a more thorough survey can be completed. Translation: Don't wander off, Falir added, unstrapping himself from his seat. Guess it's time to see if this place is everything it's cracked up to be. Nicordus was already pulling on his gear, a mix of excitement and caution in his eyes. I'll take first watch. You guys make sure we're secure here. Then let's set up a perimeter. As they stepped out of the Requiem for the first time, the air fresh and filled with the sense of alien flora, the sense of new beginnings was overwhelming. They were pioneers on an untouched world, with all the hopes and fears that entailed. The ground underfoot was soft, covered in a carpet of moss-like vegetation that cushioned their steps. Rin took a deep breath, feeling the weight of countless decisions looming ahead. This planet could be a sanctuary, a place to start a new Earth. As she looked out over the lake, reflecting the setting sun of this new world, the possibilities seemed as endless as the sky above them. The alien sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the landscape as the crew of the Requiem began their first night on the new planet. The air was crisp, filled with the sounds of nocturnal creatures awakening to their twilight chorus. Nicordus had set up portable lights around the perimeter of their camp, the artificial glow creating a small oasis of safety amidst the unknown. Rin and Falir were assembling a communications array on top of the ship, hoping to boost their signal enough to send a reconnaissance report back through to Earth. Think Earth will be getting our postcards anytime soon? Falir asked, half joking as he connected another segment of the array. Rin, securing the base of the array, looked up at the star-filled sky. If this works, they'll know, and that this place could be what we've been looking for, just in case the Mechron's full show of force is too much for humanity to face. Meanwhile, Nicordus kept watch, his eyes scanning the dark woods. The Mechron entity, which they had started to refer to as Monger, was standing by, its sensors continuously sweeping the area. Quiet night, Nicordus murmured to Monger, who responded, Quiet is good, its voice a monotone. No significant movement detected within a 2-kilometer radius. Nicordus nodded, though his grip on his rifle didn't loosen. Let's keep it that way. Back at the communications setup, Falir powered up the array. A low hum began to build, the screens flickering to life. Here goes nothing, he said, fingers crossed. The array beeped twice, a good sign. Signal's strong and stable, we're broadcasting, Falir announced, a broad grin spreading across his face. Rin responded with, Good work, Falir. Let's give it some time, see if we get a ping back. As the night progressed, the team took shifts monitoring the array and patrolling the camp. The planet, while serene, was still a giant question mark in Rin's mind. Each rustle in the underbrush, each unfamiliar call from the dark forest, kept her senses sharp. During her patrol shift, Rin walked the perimeter, her boots soft on the alien soil. Monger accompanied her, moving with a silent grace that belied its robotic nature. You've been quiet tonight, Monger. Everything okay in the circuitry department? Systems functioning within optimal parameters, Monger responded, its lights casting a red glow. I am continually analyzing our surroundings for potential threats. Great, Rin said, a note of appreciation in her voice. Keep me posted if anything changes. On the other side of the camp, Falir was making adjustments to the array, trying to increase its efficiency. Nicordus joined him, handing him a tool. How's the alien tech wizardry going? Better than expected, Falir replied, tweaking another setting. This weird planet's atmosphere is actually helping boost the signal. We might just get a stable connection to Earth after all. As the night wore on, the team's initial tension slowly eased. No threats emerged from the dark, and the planet's environment seemed as calm as it had during their initial scans. Rin, standing a little away from the camp, looked up at the stars again, considering their isolation and the sliver of hope that this planet represented. We might actually have a chance here, she said to herself, a mixture of wonder and resolve filling her voice. The night passed without incident, and by the time the sun rose, painting the sky with brilliant hues of orange and pink, the crew felt a cautious optimism. They had survived their first night on a new world, their systems were operational, and their message was speeding its way through the cosmos towards Earth. With the first rays of the alien sun casting a golden hue across the landscape, the crew of the Requiem readied themselves for the day's exploration. Their makeshift camp was a flurry of activity, with each member carrying out their tasks with renewed vigor after a surprisingly peaceful first night on the new planet. Rin, checking the readouts from the overnight scans, was the picture of focused command. "Falir, how's the signal holding up this morning?" "Still strong," Falir responded, his eyes fixed on the array's monitors. "We delivered our message, but the listening post wasn't where Earth should be. It was definitely sent into our solar system, though. They received our initial data burst, and we included the schematics for this type of transmitter. It will be a while before we get something back, at least until they build their own FTL transmitter." Nicordus, who was preparing equipment for their first day of exploration, looked up with a smirk. "Hear that? We're not screaming into the void anymore. Someone's actually listening." Rin couldn't help but smile back. "Let's hope they respond soon. Monger, you're with me today. We're going to survey the northern quadrant. Falir, Nicordus, take the southern edge. We need water samples, soil analysis, and anything else that might be of use." Monger, its sensors already whirring softly in preparation, nodded its agreement. "Affirmative, Commander. Optimizing sensors for ecological data collection." Rin responded, "Look at that, it's calling me Commander." As the team split up, Rin and Monger ventured into the dense forest that bordered their landing site. The undergrowth was thick, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of alien flora. Monger led the way, its body a soft beacon of light among the shadows of towering trees and overgrown ferns. "Keep an eye on the bioreaders, Monger. I don't want to become surprise dinner," Rin instructed, her hand resting on the sidearm at her belt. Despite the peaceful night, she wasn't ready to trust the planet just yet. "Understood," Monger replied, its voice a comforting constant in the quiet of the forest. "Initial scans show a diverse ecosystem. No immediate threats detected, but caution is advised." The further they ventured, the more Rin felt a sense of awe at the untouched beauty of the world around them. It was a researcher's paradise, each new plant and insect a possible discovery that could change their understanding of life in the cosmos. Meanwhile, Falir and Nicordus made their way to the southern shore of the lake they had seen from their camp. The water was clear, reflecting the sky in a mirror-like surface that was only occasionally disturbed by the jumping of fish-like creatures. "Looks like we won't be going hungry," Nicordus commented, taking samples of the water and nearby soil. Falir, scanning the area with a handheld device, nodded. "And if the water's as clean as it looks, we won't be going thirsty either. This place might just be perfect after all. Maybe too perfect." Nicordus shot him a quick shrug that said, "I don't know, maybe." Back in the northern forest, Rin and Monger stumbled upon a clearing where the light pooled on the ground like liquid gold. In the center of the clearing stood a strange, metal-like structure, its surface smooth and oddly luminescent. Rin approached cautiously, her curiosity piqued. "Monger, any ideas what this is?" Monger extended a limb, touching the structure gently. "Unknown material, not native to the planet. It appears to be powered." As if on cue, the structure began to glow brighter. A warm energy pulsed from it, washing over Rin and Monger in a wave that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. Rin stepped back, her instincts screaming caution. "Monger, do you feel that?" "Energy surge detected. It is rejuvenating, but unknown. Caution is strongly recommended." Rin ran back to the 3-line, keeping her eyes on the glowing metal object the size of a small building. "Let's mark this location. We need to bring the others here and figure out what this is." Back at the lake, Nicordus and Falir were wrapping up their sampling when Rin's voice crackled over their communicators. "We've found something. Northern quadrant. Looks important, and possibly dangerous. We need all hands on deck." Nicordus grabbed his pack, his earlier levity replaced by urgency. "On our way, Commander." As he chuckled with the name, however, he couldn't just dispel the feeling of something just had to go south again, like it always does. As they converged on the site of the discovery, each member of the team felt the shift in the air, a buzz of energy that hinted at secrets hidden within the planet's serene facade. The luminescent structure in the clearing was a beacon, drawing the crew together with its enigmatic allure. As Falir and Nicordus arrived, they found Rin and Monger standing a cautious distance away, observing the pulsating glow that seemed to rhythmically breathe light into the surrounding air. "What in the cosmos is that, and what is it doing here?" Falir asked, his tone a mix of awe and apprehension. Nicordus, his eyes wide, approached slowly, a scanner in hand. "Whatever it is, it's emitting some sort of energy signature, but nothing like the Requiem." Rin gestured to the area surrounding the structure. "We need to figure out if it's safe and what its purpose might be." Monger moved closer, its sensors extended. "The energy is stable, but potent. It appears to be a sort of beacon or marker. My hypothesis: it may have been part of a larger object." Falir, looking between the device and the serene landscape, rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Could this planet be a hub of some sort? Maybe a way station or a marker for someone or something else? The group mulled over the possibilities. The discovery of the structure suggested that they were not the first to visit this world, and perhaps not the first to consider it significant. The implications were profound, offering new avenues of thought about interstellar travel and ancient civilizations. Rin decided to establish a secure perimeter around the structure. "We need to set up monitoring equipment. If this is indeed a beacon, we might be able to trace its signal or even use it ourselves." As they worked, setting up sensors and data collectors, the structure occasionally pulsed brighter, as if responding to their presence. As the sun was setting once more, Nicordus, who was aligning a sensor, paused and looked up at the fading light. "You know, this might just be the biggest discovery of our time. We could be standing on a piece of history." Rin pointed her finger at the Requiem. Nicordus looked at it, then sighed and fixed his statement. "Okay, maybe the second biggest discovery." Falir nodded, his earlier reservations giving way to the thrill of discovery. "Imagine the stories they'll tell about us. Salvage Inc., now the crew of the Requiem, we uncovered an Earth-like planet and maybe even the gateway to the stars. It has a nice ring to it. Also, plenty of money to be made from that," he mused. The evening wore on, and as the sun set completely, the structure's glow became the only source of light in the clearing, casting an ethereal glow on their faces. They set up a temporary camp nearby, not wanting to stray too far from their find. That night, as they sat around their portable heater, the crew discussed the day's findings. Rin looked around at her team, their faces illuminated by both the fire and the pulsing light from the structure. "We have a choice to make," she said, her voice cutting through the crackle of the fire. "We can finish our surveys and try to return home with the data, or we can stay and learn more, maybe even contact whoever made them." The crew exchanged looks, the weight of the decision pressing upon them. Nicordus was the first to speak up. "I say we explore. We have a chance to do something extraordinary here. We can always go back, but what if we miss our chance to truly understand this place?" Falir nodded in agreement. "I'm with Nicordus. There is enough food here to extend our stay, and with the data we've sent back, Earth knows we're here." Monger, ever the observer, added, "My systems are well suited to extended planetary study." Rin considered each of their opinions, her gaze lingering on the glowing structure. "All right," she finally said, her voice firm with resolve. "We stay. We learn. We explore. Let's see what secrets this planet holds and what stories it will tell." They all nodded, a sense of unity and purpose binding them together under the alien stars. The alien dawn broke over the horizon, casting a new light on the mysterious structure that had captivated the crew of the Requiem. Today, with their decision to stay and explore solidified, there was a fresh vigor in their actions, a sense of purpose that went beyond mere survival or discovery. Rin, along with Monger, started the day by mapping a wider perimeter around the beacon-like structure. The plan was to search for an entrance into the structure or any additional artifacts or signs of the ancient technology that might reveal the purpose of this world in a broader cosmic network. "Keep an eye on the energy fluctuations, Monger. Let's see if we can't decipher a pattern or a triggering mechanism," Rin instructed, her voice low and focused as they circled the glowing building-sized structure. Monger responded with a series of beeps and whirs, delicately probing the air and ground. Data suggests intermittent pulses at regular intervals. Falere and Nicordus, meanwhile, undertook the task of establishing a more permanent base camp. They were constructing a modular lab near the structure and unloading gear from the ship. "I've always wanted to play with this sort of gear," Falere commented cheerily as he calibrated a spectral analyzer. "Feels like unwrapping presents on my birthday." Nicordus, securing a solar panel to the structure, grinned back. "Just don't blow a fuse. We're a long way from the nearest hardware store." The day progressed with each member of the crew engrossed in their tasks, the hum of machinery and occasional calls to one another breaking the serene silence of the alien landscape. Rin and Monger's exploration around the beacon uncovered more peculiarities in the terrain, subtle variations in soil composition and vegetation that seemed to radiate outward from the structure. "It's as if this whole area is influenced by the structure's presence," Rin mused aloud, noting the changes on her digital pad. "Monger, could the structure be affecting the ecosystem here?" "Analysis confirms high probability of ecological integration," Monger replied, displaying a holographic model of the area that highlighted the affected zones. "The structure's energy emissions could be enhancing or sustaining certain life forms. It's highly likely to be an atmospheric processor." Rin pondered aloud, "What's an atmospheric processor doing here, and why is it making it possible to sustain human life on this planet?" As the afternoon waned into evening, the team regrouped at the base camp to share findings and plan their next moves. The atmosphere was charged with excitement. Each piece of data, each new discovery seemed to promise more secrets just waiting to be unlocked. During their debriefing, Nicordus displayed the environmental data on a large screen. "It looks like we've got more than just a fancy rock here," he explained. "I've also found evidence of multiple structures like this scattered across the planet. We missed them on our initial scans because they were likely dormant. It seems they've reawakened since we landed. If we can crack the code of these structures, who knows what else we'll find?" Falere, ever the skeptic, raised an eyebrow. "Or what will find us? Let's not forget, we're not scientists or even cyborg-enhanced soldiers. We are just a human salvage crew, very far from home. Caution is mandatory." Rin nodded in agreement. "Tomorrow we'll expand the perimeter further. We need to understand the full scope of the structure's influence. Monger, you'll continue your analysis here. Falere, Nicordus, you're with me. We need to ensure we're prepared for any surprises." The crew settled down for the night, the camp bathed in the soft glow of both the structure and their own protective lighting. As they drifted off to sleep in their alien surroundings with the promise of an exciting tomorrow, the stars overhead, however, twinkled with the promise of the unknown. The morning light on the alien planet was soft, filtering through the atmosphere and casting long shadows from the towering structures dotting the landscape. The crew of the Requiem had begun their day like many before, preparing their equipment, checking their data, and setting out to uncover the mysteries that this world held. As they approached another of the enigmatic structures, similar in design to the beacon they had first encountered, Rin, the newly appointed commander of the Requiem, paused and scanned the horizon. The quiet was profound, broken only by the distant calls of alien wildlife and the occasional rustle of the breeze through strange, fern-like plants. "Looks like just another relic," Nicordus muttered, tapping his scanner in mild frustration as it failed to pick up any new readings. "Don't jinx it," Falere replied, his tone light, eyes focused on the structure's surface. "Every piece tells a part of the story, right?" As they neared the structure, a sudden hum vibrated through the air, a sound so pure and resonating that it seemed to come from the very planet itself. The crew stopped in their tracks, looking around in alarm. Rin raised her hand, signaling a halt. "Steady," she said quietly, her eyes narrowing as she observed the structure. It began to glow faintly, lines of light tracing patterns across its surface. "It's activating," Monger announced, its robotic voice cutting through the tension. The Mechron, now integrated into the crew, moved closer to the structure, its sensors whirring and lights blinking in response to the structure's awakening. "I'm getting something here," Falere whispered, stepping forward with a handheld scanner. He extended the device toward the structure, but before he could initiate a scan, the structure itself spoke. "I am Curie, welcome creators." A voice emanated from the structure, sounding mechanical. "I am the AI of this terraforming station. originally from the Earth vessel, Solemn Vanguard. I am very happy to finally be able to meet humans. Sadly, all the questions I wanted to ask were stored in my databanks. The crew exchanged glances, a mix of surprise and intrigue on their faces. An AI? Rin questioned, stepping forward. And from an Earth ship here? What happened to your vessel? Curie's lights pulsed softly, the voice resuming with a hint of melancholy. The Solemn Vanguard sustained critical damage in conflict. My core was ejected together with the ship's atmospheric processor to continue the mission of terraforming in the event of catastrophic loss. Ah, the classic last-ditch survival protocol, Nicortis said, nodding with a mix of respect and sadness for the AI's lost shipmates. Falir, ever the quick-witted one, was quick to probe further. And your mission here? Has it been successful? Then continues, it looks like it has been doing well? Partially, Curie responded. The process is ongoing, but without direct intervention, it remains incomplete. Rin stepped closer, her leadership instincts kicking in. Perhaps we can help finish what you started, she offered, her tone both compassionate and decisive. Tell us what needs to be done. As Curie began to outline the steps necessary to reactivate and link the dormant terraforming systems, the crew listened intently, each member already formulating plans in their minds. Looks like we've got our work cut out for us, Nicortis said, breaking the momentary silence that had fallen as they absorbed Curie's instructions. From salvaging a Mechron ship for riches to terraforming a backup planet. Falir chuckled softly, checking his tools. Let's just hope we're up to the task. You are, after all, right? We're not just salvagers anymore, we're terraformers. With a new purpose and a clear goal, the crew of the Requiem prepared to dive deeper into the secrets of the planet, guided by an AI from a lost Earth vessel. Their journey was no longer just about exploration. It was about resurrection. The dense forest that surrounded them was alive with the sounds of unknown creatures and the rustle of leaves that moved in a rhythm with the gentle breeze. As the crew made their way back to the Requiem, Rin led the discussion on their next steps, with the newly discovered AI, Curie, still communicating through their portable devices. Curie, tell us more about the Solemn Vanguard. What was its mission? Rin asked as they trudged through the underbrush, making sure to keep an eye on the path that Monger was cutting through the dense foliage. Curie's voice, emanating from a small speaker on Rin's wrist communicator, was tinged with static, but the tone remained clear and informative. The Solemn Vanguard had been designed to battle against the mechanoid incoming fleet. Monger interjected himself. Mechron's bad for universe, but mechanoid's way worse. Curie continued. The Vanguard would lead at the front of the fleet to break through Earth's blockade, if it ever came to that, and then continue our mission to ensure humanity had a future. I am unable to access the ship's databanks, so I am unsure what actually transpired. My personal databanks have been damaged and eroded. Falir looked up from his gadget, interest piqued. How many ships were in this fleet? There were originally 12 dreadnoughts planned. I was the science module AI on board. The entire building process was handled by AI, no human intervention required. Nicortis whistled lowly. Did any others succeed? Unknown, replied Curie. But seeing I made it onto this planet, we made it through the blockade, I assume. Rin then asked, Curie, I have to ask, who built you? We have no data on 12 dreadnoughts being built in our solar system. We only know of a single one, and the Mechron fleet you speak of is still hundreds of years away from Earth. Curie quickly interjected. I have no data on these Mechron you speak of. I only know of the mechanoids. My data is limited as she repeats the sentence about the damaged memory modules. Falir responded, I am confused. With Nicortis replying, I think that makes 3 of us. Rin, well, it's not like the Requiem was built in our time. It's clearly from the future. So what we are having here might be a time paradox. They might also be from the future, but that ship departs 200 or so years from now. Curie replied, well, I did scan your ship. It is N-Tech made, just like the Vanguard, except that its magnitude's more advanced than the Solemn Vanguard. It does seem to lack an AI. Nicortis answers, yeah, we kind of found it that way. Holding back a, we stole it joke. Never know how an AI would react. This new information seemed to weigh heavily on the crew, each member processing the scale of their discovery and the broader implications. As they approached the Requiem, Rin signaled to stop for a moment. "We need to consider our next moves carefully," she said, scanning the faces of her team. "Curie, you mentioned the terraforming process was incomplete. What's needed to finish it?" Curie's voice crackled slightly as she explained. "The main control hub for the terraforming process has been offline for quite some time. If reactivated, I can manage the system to deploy my final protocols." Monger, always ready to lend a hand, interjected enthusiastically, "I can assist in connecting with the hub once we find it." Curie, with a hint of amusement in her voice, teased, "Accepting help from a mechanoid, huh? Ares would never let me hear the end of it if he were here." Visibly irritated, Monger corrected her sharply. "Not mechanoid, Mechron." Rin stepped in, trying to diffuse the tension with a calm, soothing tone. "All right, let's settle down, both of you. Now that that's decided, let's go find that hub and get it operational." Pausing for a moment, she added curiously, "By the way, how long have you been on this planet?" "Unknown," replied Curie. "Databanks have eroded." The crew's trek back to the Requiem was marked by a renewed sense of purpose. They reached the ship and quickly gathered around the main console in the cockpit. Rin brought up the planet's topographical maps, scanning for potential locations of the control hub. As Falir pointed to a region marked by unusual geological formations, Nicordus leaned over his shoulder, squinting at the screen. "That looks about right for a control hub. Secluded in plant life, very hard to reach." "This is going to be a pain in the ass to get to." Falir nodded, adjusting the display to highlight the area. "It's going to be a hike, rough terrain, possibly unstable. We'll need to gear up properly." Nicordus replied, "Pain in the ass." Rin approved the plan and set the crew to prepare. Monger prepared a selection of tools and interfacing devices, while Falir checked and double-checked the gear. Nicordus, meanwhile, loaded up on supplies, ensuring they had enough provisions and medical supplies because he took with him everything. "Let's not turn this into a camping trip," Rin joked as she hoisted a particularly heavy bag over her shoulder and brought it back into the cargo hold. "I'm not hauling this back just for fun." Falir smirked, handing over a compact, high-tech tent. "You'll thank me when you're not sleeping under a rock for shelter." With preparations complete, the crew of the Requiem set out towards the location that might hold the key to Curie's last protocols. The journey was tough, the path often obscured by thick undergrowth and the occasional unidentifiable noise from the surrounding wilderness keeping them on alert. As they hiked, Curie continued to provide insights into the terraforming technology they were about to encounter, her voice a steady presence in their ears. Rin, leading the way with Monger by her side, felt the weight of the mission on her shoulders. After several days of trekking, the team reached the main control hub for the terraforming process. Upon inspection, Nicordus immediately pinpointed the problem, remarking, "Well, I found the issue." Everyone's face lit up with a smile. He then continued with, "A huge hole." The hub's damage was severe, with significant portions burned through and parts missing, suggesting a harsh landing or attack during its ejection from the dreadnought. This discovery made it clear that repairing the hub with their current resources was not feasible, so Curie came up with a new plan. "Easy, just getting a new module sent down from the Solemn Vanguard," said Nicordus as he repeated what the AI just had said. Nicordus followed up with, "A pain in the ass." The crisp morning air swirled around the Requiem as it sat quietly on the alien terrain, its hull gleaming under the first light of the planet's twin suns. Inside, the atmosphere was abuzz with activity. Rin stood by the navigation console, meticulously checking the coordinates they had for the drifting Solemn Vanguard. Her expression was focused, her mind racing through the checklist of preparations needed. "Navigation systems are green. We're ready to chart a course as soon as we're all aboard," she announced, her voice echoing slightly through the intercom. In the cargo bay, Falir and Nicordus were busy securing the last pieces of their gear. Boxes of supplies were neatly stacked and tethered to the walls, and the air was filled with the scent of synthetic oil and metal, a testament to their rigorous preparations. "Make sure those tether lines are tight," Nicordus instructed, double-checking the knots himself. "We don't want anything floating around in space." Falir, handling a particularly stubborn piece of machinery, grunted in response. "What I'd give for a gravity well right about now," he muttered, finally securing the gear with a satisfied nod. "There, that's not going anywhere." The banter between the crew continued as they worked, each member comfortable in their role, yet aware of the risks involved. Monger, assisting with the technical setup, interfaced directly with the ship's central system, updating systems with the latest navigation data provided by Curie. All systems are now optimized for deep space travel, it announced, its voice calm and measured. Good work, Monger, Rin replied, glancing over the readouts. Let's keep everything running this smoothly. As the last checks were completed, Rin gathered the crew in the briefing room. The walls were lined with digital displays showing star charts and a live feed of their destination. All right, team, this is it, Rin began, her gaze meeting each of her crew members in turn. We've got a solid plan, but I want everyone on their toes. We don't know what condition the Vanguard is in, or what we're going to find aboard. Falir nodded, his usual humor subdued by the gravity of the mission. Yeah, who knows how unstable that old dreadnought is? Nicordus added, What could go wrong? We get in, we extract what we need, and we get out. Exactly, Rin confirmed. We have a window of opportunity while the Vanguard passes by the planet. It's now or never. Seeing the size of that module, there is no way we can load this into the Requiem with just 4 of us. We have to eject it on a trajectory to land within reach of Curie. We can't fuck this one up. The crew's determination was palpable as they made their way to their stations. Each movement practiced and precise, is what I would want to say. But no, not this party. The Requiem's engines hummed to life, sending vibrations through the ship. As the ship disengaged from the planet's surface, the landscape below shrank away, becoming just another part of the vast tapestry of space that stretched out infinitely before them. Falir, stationed at his console, monitored their trajectory, making minor adjustments as they cleared the planet's atmosphere. Trajectory is stable. We're on course for the rendezvous with the Vanguard. Rin, sitting in the commander's chair, allowed herself a moment of pride. This crew, her crew, was about to embark on a journey that could well be a pivotal moment in human history. The vastness of space enveloped the Requiem as it cruised towards the coordinates of the solemn Vanguard. Stars twinkled like distant lanterns, guiding the way through the cosmic sea. Inside the ship, the dim blue lighting cast long shadows along the corridors, matching the solemn mood that had settled over the crew as they neared their destination. Rin, her eyes fixed on the deep black of space displayed on the forward screens. Every now and then, a distant star would flare as if acknowledging their passage. Approaching the target coordinates, Monger announced, its voice steady and devoid of the tension that tightened Rin's shoulders. Sensors are detecting a large mass. It appears to be the Vanguard. Nicordus, who had been checking and rechecking his gear, looked up. Let's hope it's not monster-infested. If it's not the planet being eat the humans, it could still be that ship, he said. Falir, focused intently at his sensor array, carefully adjusted the dials, his brow furrowed in concentration. I'm picking up some unusual readings here, he announced, a note of concern in his voice. He continued, scrutinizing the data flashing across the screens. The hull's torn wide open, yet, surprisingly, most of the ship still has a breathable atmosphere. However, there are no signs of any power signatures. Pausing, he glanced around at his crewmates, his curiosity piqued. It's somewhat intact. I wonder if it's still operational. It looks kind of dead, Nicordus muttered, strapping a flashlight to his suit. Rin shot him a look that softened as she turned back to the viewport. Prepare for boarding. We don't know what we'll find, but remember, our primary goal is to find the backup module to land on the planet this time, without huge holes in it, and hopefully find some answers. What a ship that shouldn't exist is doing here. Like, how many damn paradoxes are we going to find? First the Requiem, then the planet, now this. As the Requiem drew closer, the imposing form of the solemn Vanguard came into view. The ship was a behemoth. Its hull, scarred and pitted from untold battles or debris, reflected the light from distant stars, the silent sentinel of the void. Monger interfaced with the Requiem's docking system, guiding the ship gently towards the Vanguard. Docking sequence initiated, magnetic locks engaging now. The soft thud of the locks securing themselves to the Vanguard's airlock sent a shiver through the crew. This was it. They were about to step onto a ship that hadn't felt the presence of humans in decades, maybe longer, if only they knew how long this ship has been traveling the stars. Let's move out, Rin ordered, leading her team to the airlock. They donned their EVA suits in silence, each member mentally preparing for what might await them aboard the ghost ship. The airlock door slid open with a hiss, revealing the dark, gaping entrance to the Vanguard. Rin, not being her usual self, stepped in first, her suit's lights piercing the darkness. The air was stale, heavy with the scent of ionization and old metal. "This place is a tomb," Nicordus whispered, his voice echoing slightly over the comms. "Stay focused," Rin replied. "Monger, best you stay on the Requiem. Keep an eye on our lifelines and comms. Falir, you're with me. Nicordus, see if you can find the modules that Curie had been talking about." Nicordus mutters, "All by myself? Alone?" Falir replies, "But you said it yourself. It looks kind of dead." Nicordus wanted to reply, but the other two already rounded a corner, so he could only mutter a single word. "Fuck." The ship was a labyrinth of corridors and sealed doors. Every so often they would pass a viewing port, offering glimpses of the ship's interior. Beautiful, yet indifferent to the small band of explorers uncovering the secrets of the past and future. As they made their way to the main control room, Rin's thoughts drifted to the crew that once manned the Vanguard. What hopes and fears had they harbored? They reached the control room, and the door slid open with a reluctant groan, something it hadn't done in centuries. This gave them both goosebumps. Rin, taken aback a bit, looks at Falir, then asked him, "I thought there wasn't any power." Falir just gave a slight shoulder shrug back, stating, "I don't know." Inside, consoles and screens were coated in dust, untouched for ages. Rin approached the main terminal, her hand hesitating before touching the cold, lifeless interface. "Let's see if we can wake up the consoles," she said, her voice a mix of command and encouragement. Falir set up a portable power unit and connected it to the console. The screens flickered to life, casting an eerie glow in the dim room. Text scrolled across the display, logs and data from the Vanguard's last few days in operation. "Looks like we've got access to the ship's terminals, logs, and maybe more," Falir said, scanning through the entries. "There's a lot of data here that could help us understand what happened." "That would be great, because we seem to be in way over our heads with all of this," Rin added, her focus now on the screen, deciphering the logs. The secrets of the Vanguard were slowly unfolding, each file and entry a piece of the puzzle they were here to solve. As they delved deeper into the data, the sense of being part of something much larger than themselves grew. Here, among the stars and the silence of a long-lost ship, they were not just scavengers or survivors. They were the bearers of legacy, picking up the torch to light humanity's way forward. The air was thick with the weight of discoveries yet to be unearthed. The consoles, now humming softly with renewed life, cast an otherworldly glow over Rin and Falir as they pored over the data streams flowing across the screens. "Look at this," Falir said, his voice a mix of excitement and disbelief as he tapped at a graph laden with complex algorithms. "These are the AI protocols. I've seen our current AIs, but they are like nothing compared to these. The technology here could accelerate our efforts back on the planet by decades." Rin leaned closer, her eyes tracing the lines of code that represented hope. "Can we integrate this into the Requiem systems?" she asked, thinking aloud. "We really could use an AI, until we get Biscuit back." She was of course kidding. "It's possible," Falir nodded, already mentally sifting through the modifications they would need to make. "We'll need to download everything we can and have Monger help with the translation and implementation of this tech. I am just a thug, not an engineer." Which gave Rin an unpleasant flashback to paying with her kidneys. As they worked, Nicordus patrolled the corridors looking for the small needle in a large stack of slightly bigger needles, yet it felt like he was somehow guided through the corridors by something subtle and unseen, his rifle at the ready, casting long shadows that danced along the walls. His footsteps echoed in the empty ship, a reminder of its abandonment. "It's quiet out here," Nicordus reported into the comm, his voice tinged with wariness. "Too quiet." His eyes fixed on a single automaton guardian that stood ominously among the rows lining the corridor. It seemed as if it could spring to life at any moment and tear him apart, adding an edge of tension to the silence. "Just keep sharp," Rin replied, her focus shifting briefly to ensure their safety. "We don't know everything that's aboard, or what might have taken residence in the years it's been adrift." Nicordus's voice crackled through the comm, edged with panic. Wait, you think something might be on board? Just as he spoke, he drifted out of comms range, and his link abruptly disconnected, leaving his question hanging in the unnerving silence. Isolated and tense, Nicordus paused, a cold shiver running down his spine. He could have sworn that just a moment ago, the head of the nearby automaton was positioned differently. Now, its gaze seemed ominously shifted, as if tracking his movements silently. The sudden solitude and the eerie change intensified his fear, making him painfully aware of his vulnerability in the ghostly ship. Back inside the control room, Falir successfully interfaced a portable drive with the Vanguard's mainframe. Data began to transfer, a stream of light flickering on the drive's indicator. This is going to take a while, he said, watching the progress bar slowly inch forward. We're talking about a dreadnought's worth of data, and this is just what is left in these terminals. To get all the data, we would need to power on the mainframe. Let's just wait on the terminal data, Rin decided, her gaze settling on the viewport that offered a view of the stars beyond. We can't leave without this, but reactivating the ship, we aren't equipped for that. The damage to its core systems is way beyond what we can do, she says while pulling up a damage assessment. It took a serious beating. We can always come back later. The wait was tense, each minute stretching out as the data transfer crawled along. Rin and Falir used the time to explore the immediate areas around the control room, careful not to stray too far. Every new room held remnants of the past, a scattered log, a floating tool, remnants of a life once lived at the edge of human exploration, not knowing the dreadnought had done none of that. All it ever knew was war. In one room, they found a wall filled with images of the crew that should have once manned the Vanguard. Smiling faces stared back at them, frozen in time. Rin paused before the pictures, touched by the glimpse into the lives of the Vanguard crew. It makes you think, she murmured, her voice soft, about the bravery it took to embark on this task. Falir nodded, his expression somber. Makes our problems seem small in comparison. Their exploration led them back to the control room just as the data transfer completed. The drive blinked a final time, and Falir removed it carefully. We've got it, he announced, a relieved smile breaking across his face. All right, Nicordus, come in. Did you manage to find the module? Nicordus's voice came through the comms, crackling slightly but filled with a palpable sense of relief. Yeah, found it. It's undamaged. I've entered the coordinates, and it accepted them without any issues. It will start auto-deploying in about 5 minutes. I'm already on my way back. He paused for a moment, his voice quickening with anticipation. I'll see you on the Requiem soon. As he resumed his trek back to safety, a more personal note crept into his voice, tinged with eager longing. I can't wait to get out of here. Just in time, Rin replied, glancing at her watch as it's, let's get the fuck out of here time. With the drive secured and the deployment underway, they made their way back to the Requiem, retracing their steps through the silent halls of the Vanguard. As they regrouped with Nicordus, they made their way to the airlock. Then, as Rin closed the doors behind her, she took one last look back at the derelict ship, feeling a kinship with the lost crew who had, in their own way, passed on the torch to them. While they made preparations to undock back on the bridge, Ares, the ship's commanding AI, flickered briefly to life. So, Curie, he mused, you made some new friends. We shall leave you to your task, while we stay up here silently looking over you. Then all the other AIs flickered to life, silently agreeing with their commander, before falling dormant again, for who knows how long. Back aboard their ship, the journey home was quiet, each member of the team lost in their thoughts, pondering the implications of their findings. They had retrieved a treasure trove of data, information albeit encrypted, that promised a leap forward for humanity's future. As the Requiem set its course back to the planet, Rin felt a mix of exhilaration and apprehension. They were carrying back not just data, but a legacy. The challenge now was to honor that legacy, to build on it, and to dream of what might come next. The stars outside seemed to twinkle in agreement, a silent cheer for the ship and its brave crew heading home to New Earth. The dawn broke over New Earth with twin suns inching above the horizon, casting long dual shadows that danced over the metallic hull of the Requiem as it pierced the planet's atmosphere. Inside, the mood was a mix of tense anticipation and weary relief. Commander Rin's gaze was fixed on the forward screens, where the landscape unfolded in swathes of green and rust red, colors that told stories of a world reborn through human ingenuity and alien technology. "All right, team, brace for landing." Rin's voice was calm, a stark contrast to the thrumming of the engines as the ship descended. Beside her, Nicordus, the ship's engineer, clutched the arms of his seat, a ritual of his during every landing, no matter how smooth. Falir, stationed at the navigation console, quipped, "Hope we don't stir up too much dust. I just got everything cleaned before we left." Monger, the Mechron crew member, was the first to unstrap, its servos whirring softly. "All systems appear stable. I am ready to assist with the beacon deployment." Rin nodded, stepping out of her chair with the poise of a seasoned leader. "Let's not waste any time then. We've got a beacon to deploy." Through the terminals on the Requiem, Rin surveyed the area. "This spot will give the beacon maximum coverage over the new growth areas," she declared, pointing towards a clearing surrounded by young alien foliage. Nicordus responds, "All right, let me just link this datapad up with the beacon that's waiting in orbit for deployment." The tension on the Requiem's bridge is palpable. Nicordus, with his datapad now synced to the beacon's controls, announces the crucial final steps to ensure a safe landing. "Okay, calling it down to the planet," he says, his voice steady despite the high stakes. Moments later, the beacon begins its rapid descent, hurtling towards the planet's surface. The sight from the ship's viewing port is awe-inspiring. The beacon, encapsulated in a shimmer of atmospheric friction, blazes like a meteor. Firing retro thrusters in 3, 2. Nicordus counts down, pressing the final sequence on his pad. The beacon responds instantly, its thrusters igniting in a powerful burst to slow its fall, transforming the fiery descent into a controlled landing. As it touches down on the alien terrain, a cloud of dust billows around it. Then Nicordus notices that the beacon landed slightly of target, grumbled, "Yeah, and it just had to land at the highest point, didn't it?" Looking at the beacon having landed on the ridge of a steep cliff. "Consider it your daily workout," Falir shot back. The task on site later was meticulous. Every sensor, every transmitter had to be perfectly aligned. Monger's precision was invaluable, its mechanical arms moving with fluid accuracy that complemented the human hands at work. As the final piece clicked into place, Rin stepped back, wiping a bead of sweat from her brow. "All right, Curie, you're up," she called out, activating her communicator to link with the AI. Curie's voice, ever calm and metallic, responded through their wrist devices. "Acknowledged, Commander. Initiating final terraforming protocols now." A low hum vibrated through the ground, almost imperceptible at first, then steadily growing as the beacon lit up, its panels emitting a soft blue light that pulsed rhythmically. The air seemed to shimmer slightly, charged with potential. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Falir mused, his eyes not leaving the beacon. "Like watching a new star being born." "More like a new world," Rin corrected softly, pride evident in her voice. Their moment of reflection was cut short by an unexpected mechanical whir. Curie, interfacing directly with the beacon, triggered a previously unseen compartment within the AI's science module unit to slide open, revealing the cryopod containing a human. The pod was sleek, its surface a seamless reflective black that seemed to absorb light. Through the transparent lid, they could see the figure of a woman, her features delicate and eerily perfect. "Didn't expect that," Nicordus remarked, peering curiously at the pod. "Curie, any data on this?" Rin asked, her tone mixing curiosity with a hint of concern. "No records available, Commander. This does not appear in any of my core databases," Curie replied, her confusion mirroring their own. Monger moved closer, its sensors scanning the pod. "Life signs are stable, if you call them that. She's entirely synthetic." Falir knelt beside the pod, his brow furrowed. "Well, we can't just leave her here. Looks like we've got another mystery on our hands." "Yeah, another one," Nicordus quipped. Rin nodded, her gaze lingering on the sleeping synthetic girl. "Let's get her back to the Requiem. There's much to do, and it looks like our mission just got a bit more complicated." Falir replied with, "That's the understatement of the century, and you know it." With a newfound sense of responsibility, the crew carefully moved the cryopod to their ship and stowed it away, as they had other more pressing matters to attend. Back at the ship, the interior of the Requiem was abuzz with activity, the hum of machinery and the low chatter of its crew filling the air as they set about integrating Curie with the ship's systems before finishing her terraforming mission. As the integration went smoothly, it was soon time for the beacon. With the beacon now active and pulsing steadily on the planet's surface, Curie was finalizing everything, an act that would mark the beginning of a fully sustainable ecosystem on New Earth. As Rin watched the displays flicker with data, Curie's voice echoed through the command module. Initiating final phase, adjusting atmospheric processors and calibrating bioregenerative systems. Her tone, if one could call it that, was devoid of inflection, yet it carried a weight that had everyone's attention. "Sounds like you're about to cook up a storm," Falir commented, eyeing the readouts that showed increasing levels of atmospheric pressure necessary for a stable environment that would last them centuries. Curie responded, the lights of her console blinking in a steady rhythm. "Meteorological adjustments are indeed part of the process, Falir." Nicordus, who had been checking the power allocations to ensure Curie had all she needed, gave a half grin. "Good luck, Curie." As the crew busied themselves with their tasks, a soft, whirring sound interrupted the focused silence, a sound none of them had heard before. They turned towards the medical unit where the cryopod containing the synthetic girl had been placed under observation. To their surprise, a panel on the pod had slid open, revealing a series of controls and a digital display flickering to life. "What now, another surprise?" Rin muttered, approaching the pod with a cautious curiosity. "Seems like she comes with a manual," Falir quipped as he joined Rin by the pod, his hands hovering over the controls, hesitant to touch anything without understanding the consequences. "Curie? Any insight into this?" Rin asked, keeping her eyes on the flickering screen that displayed a language none of them recognized. "Any idea why this isn't in English?" "I am currently interfacing with the pod systems. The language is not in my database, but I can attempt a real-time translation," Curie replied. As Curie worked on translating the text, the crew took the opportunity to speculate about their mysterious guest. "Do you think she's like us, human, or more like him?" Nicordus nodded towards Monger, who was standing by silently, its sensors directed towards the pod. Monger turned its head slightly. "She is synthetic. However, her design is far superior to my construction. I detect elements in her construction that resemble technology from the Requiem." "That doesn't simplify things, does it?" Nicordus sighed, rubbing the back of his neck as he stared at the pod. Suddenly, the screen stabilized, and text began to scroll slowly so that all could read. "NHI Prototype Synthetic Humanoid, Paradox Series 1. If you are reading this, the awakening protocols have failed." "So, she's a prototype," Falir mused aloud. "From Nova Heavy Industries?" Rin leaned closer, her finger tracing the edge of the pod. "Curie, how can we deal with this?" "It appears that the girl's systems are locked in a diagnostic loop. Maybe you could try to turn her off and back on again?" Curie mused. Nicordus looked between Rin and the pod. "So, we're to play old-school technician for a synthetic that might be as complex as the Requiem?" Rin nodded firmly, her decision made as she met the gaze of each team member. "We've handled being ported halfway through the galaxy, onto a starship unlike any other, made friends with a Mechron, went on board of a legendary ship and found a half-terraformed planet. We can handle one synthetic human." Her confidence was infectious, rallying her crew into action. "All right, let's get to it. Falir, you and Monger handle the diagnostics. Nicordus, make sure our guest doesn't drain the ship's power away from the portal core trying to wake up. We have no idea how much power her batteries can draw," Rin ordered, her voice firm yet filled with a thrill of challenge. As Falir and Monger prepared to initiate the reset, the air in the Requiem was thick with anticipation. This was uncharted territory. Every action now was a step further into the unknown, each decision a stroke in the broader picture of humanity's saga among the stars. Their journey had taken them from salvagers to terraformers, and now, perhaps, to caretakers of a new form of life. As they worked, the boundaries of their mission expanding with each passing moment, the Requiem hummed softly around them, a steadfast vessel cradling them into the future they were still writing. The lights of the Requiem dimmed momentarily as Falir and Monger initiated the reset sequence on the girl's pod. The synthetic humanoid inside remained still, her features serene even in the midst of technological turmoil. The diagnostic tools linked directly to the pod displayed a flurry of data. Values flashed rapidly across the screen in a chaotic dance of numbers and graphs. "Looks like we're in for a wild ride with this one," Falir muttered under his breath, his fingers nimbly adjusting the settings to stabilize the readings. Monger's robotic voice filled the small space with an odd sense of calm. "The initial assessments indicate that the prototype systems are incredibly sophisticated. There are layers of encryption and security that I have not encountered before." Rin, leaning against the bulkhead with folded arms, watched the process intently. "Any idea what's keeping her asleep? It's like she's locked away in her own mind." "The systems appear to be in a protective lockdown," Monger explained, its head tilted as if in thought. "It may be a safety mechanism." Nicordus, who had been silently monitoring the power distribution to ensure no surges threatened the ship's systems, chimed in from across the room. "Safety mechanism, huh? More like a failsafe in case things went south. Makes you wonder what we might be waking up here." Falir glanced at Nicordus with a wry smile. Or who they were preparing for. Maybe Paradox isn't just a name. Maybe it's a warning. Paradoxes are usually unstable. As the hours ticked by, the crew worked tirelessly to peel back the layers of her firewalls. Despite their efforts, the synthetic remained unresponsive, her existence a puzzle box that resisted every attempt to be opened. Meanwhile, Rin decided to dive deeper into the archives they had recovered from the solemn Vanguard. With Curie's help, they accessed logs that hadn't been opened since the last days the Vanguard was operational. The data was fragmented, but what they could retrieve painted a stark picture of desperation and the ship's race against time. According to these logs, the Vanguard was part of a fleet designed to break through the mechanoids' blockade around our solar system, Rin read aloud to the group, just like Curie explained last time, her voice echoing slightly on the bridge. "It seems Paradox was meant to be some sort of mediator or negotiator in case the humans perished, created to deal with potential alien diplomacy, not requiring the normal human food and air, never aging, but still being human to carry out the ship's main mission, fighting for its legacy and terraforming a new planet for human life." Falir raised an eyebrow, pausing his work. "A negotiator that doesn't wake up isn't much use in negotiations, is she?" "Unless the negotiation was meant to be very one-sided," Nicordus offered, his tone grim, not knowing that what he just said was spot on in what the Vanguard had done during its operational life cycle, not knowing that the ship had her on board, maybe even more, who knows. The crew pondered this new information, the implications hanging heavily in the air. If Paradox was indeed a tool of negotiation, what had been the terms she was meant to offer or enforce? Their reverie was broken by a sudden spike in the pod's activity. Alarms blared, and the lights flickered as Paradox's systems came alive with an unexpected vigor. "She's waking up!" Falir shouted over the cacophony. All eyes turned to the pod as the lid began to retract slowly. Inside, Paradox's eyes fluttered open, revealing irises of a deep, shimmering silver. But instead of sitting up or speaking, she remained perfectly still, her gaze fixed on the ceiling of her pod as if she saw something beyond it. "Monger, status?" Rin called out, stepping forward cautiously. "The lockdown has been lifted, but she is not fully operational. It seems she is in a state of semi-consciousness, possibly processing her initial programming," Monger reported, its voice betraying no sign of the tension that gripped the rest of the crew. Rin nodded, her gaze never leaving Paradox. "Keep monitoring her. Let's all be ready for whatever comes next." Sometime later, the soft hum of the Requiem systems was a constant background noise, a reminder of the delicate bubble of technology that sustained them millions of miles from Earth. In the relative quiet of the ship's night cycle, most of the crew had retreated to their quarters, save for Rin, who tried to stand vigil on the bridge. Paradox lay still in her pod, her occasional movements minimal but monitored. Suddenly, an alarm shattered the calm, a shrill, piercing sound that echoed through the corridors. Red lights flashed as the ship's AI, now Curie, swiftly reported, "Activity detected in the engineering bay." Rin was on her feet in an instant, her sleepiness washed away by adrenaline. "Curie, visuals!" she commanded, her voice cutting through the blaring alarms. The main screen flickered to life, showing interior camera feeds. The engineering bay was empty, or appeared to be, but a shadow moved just out of camera range, a fleeting glimpse of something or someone unauthorized. Nicordus and Falir emerged from their quarters, fastening their utility belts as they ran. "Party crasher?" Nicordus asked, his tone light but his eyes serious. "Or something left over from our last stop," Falir added as they met Rin at the bridge. Rin pointed to the screen. "We have a situation. Something's down there and it's not showing up on sensors. We need to go manual." Armed with handheld scanners and their usual equipment, the trio descended into the lower decks, their footsteps echoing in the otherwise silent ship. The alarm continued to blare intermittently. As they approached the engineering bay, Monger's voice came through their comms. "I am unable to ascertain the nature of the intruder. It appears to be avoiding all of my standard detection methods." "That's not exactly comforting, Monger," Nicordus muttered, his scanner sweeping the dark corners of the bay. The bay doors slid open with a hiss, revealing the vast room filled with the hum of machinery and the faint smell of ionized air. The crew stepped inside, lights from their gear casting large, eerie shadows against the machinery. "Split up. Quietly," Rin instructed, her voice a whisper. "Communicate only if necessary. We don't know what we're dealing with." The crew nodded, each taking a different path through the labyrinth of the engineering bay. Falir moved towards the power units, his scanner emitting a low beep as it searched for anomalies. Nicordus headed to the ventilation systems. Rin stayed at the door, peering through the glass. Minutes passed, a tense game of cat and mouse as they searched the engineering bay. Then Falir's voice crackled over the comms. "Got something here. It's like a distortion. Can't get a visual, but my scanner's picking up a definite presence." Rin and Nicordus converged on Falir's location, finding him standing before one of the main power units. His scanner pointed at what looked like thin air. "See? There, 30 meters in front of us. It's like the air is shimmering," Falir said, gesturing with his device. Rin observed the distortion, a faint visual warp that seemed to pulse slightly. "Curie, any ideas? Maybe it's friendly?" Curie's response was hesitant. "The data suggests a cloaking device, possibly mechanoid technology. It's consistent with stealth tech in my database from previous encounters." "Great. Invisible, possibly unfriendly." "Just what we needed," Nicordus said, eyeing the distortion warily. Rin responded over the comms. "Could be friendly? Hold on, let me join you." Just as Rin joined them, a blast from an invisible weapon struck her right between the eyes. If it wasn't for her portable barrier field generator absorbing the shot, her head would no longer be attached to her shoulders, making her to hastily seek cover while mumbling, "Okay, definitely not friendly." "Let's box it in," Rin decided, signaling to Curie, "Deploying barrier force fields around target." The AI replied, closing off the area around the distortion, tightening the perimeter until the shimmering air was contained within a small, visible cube of energy. "Whatever you are, you're not going anywhere now," Falir said, watching the trapped anomaly. The crew maintained their vigil, the force field humming softly in the quiet of the bay. They had contained the immediate threat, but many questions remained. What was this intruder? Was it a remnant of mechanoid technology, as Curie suggested, or something else entirely? And more importantly, what was its purpose aboard the Requiem? The atmosphere inside the Requiem was now charged with tension and a humming barrier field. The crew prepared for the interrogation of their captive entity, now securely contained. The shimmering distortion had not dissipated, hinting at the sophistication of the technology they were dealing with. Rin stood before the containment field, her arms crossed, watching the fluctuating air that marked the presence of their invisible intruder. "All right, let's figure out what you are and what you want," she murmured, more to herself than to the anomaly. Falir, equipped with a variety of sensors and diagnostic tools, approached the containment field cautiously. "I'm going to try and disrupt the cloaking mechanism," he announced, adjusting the settings on a barrier shields from the Requiem. Nicordus watched with a skeptical expression. "Just make sure you don't blow out the entire grid, Falir. We don't need any more surprises." Ignoring the remark, Falir adjusted the settings. A low beeping filled the room, gradually increasing in pitch until, with a pop, the air within the containment field cleared, revealing their stowaway. Curie was right. It was a mechanoid. Its body was sleek, with panels of shimmering metal and glowing particles that traced complex patterns across its surface. The mechanoid's eyes flickered with a light that was unsettlingly sentient. Monger, who had been analyzing the data streams from the encounter, chimed in. It appears to be equipped for reconnaissance, but its design is far more advanced beyond the current profiles we Mechron have on them. Rin stepped closer to the containment field, her gaze locked on the mechanoid. You're a long way from home. Why are you here? The mechanoid remained silent, its eyes shifting slightly as if assessing its situation. Falir tweaked the settings some more, sending a burst of energy through the containment field. This time, the mechanoid spoke, its voice a metallic echo that filled the room. I am designated Scout 7 in human terms. I seek the Vanguard. The Vanguard? Rin echoed, confusion evident in her tone. It's gone. Destroyed. What do you want with it? Incorrect, Scout 7 responded. The Vanguard is in this solar system. It carries technology essential to the Mechanoid Directive. It must be reclaimed. Rin sighs. Wow, very straightforward. Curie, you know anything about this? No, Curie responded firmly, but I don't have access to my Vanguard databanks. Nicordus exchanged a glance with Rin. Looks like our ghost ship was more important than we thought. Rin's mind raced as she processed the information. The Solemn Vanguards has so far not given much secrets away, but they had assumed its importance died with the ship. Clearly, they had been wrong. Your mission is outdated, Rin tried again, her voice firm. The Vanguard is lost, whatever it was carrying. Scout 7's lights pulsed. Then I will complete the reconnaissance of this vessel and its occupants and then find the Vanguard. Falir adjusted his settings, a frown forming. Not if we have anything to say about it. Monger spoke. Huge power buildup detected from Scout 7. Caution advised. With a swift motion, Rin signaled Falir, who sent a powerful surge through the mechanoid systems. Scout 7 froze, its lights dimming as it shut down. Breathing a sigh of relief, Rin stepped back. Let's keep it offline and secure. We need to figure out exactly what it was after and why. As they secured the deactivated Scout 7, the implications of its presence were not lost on them. If the mechanoids are active in this system, searching for something from the Vanguard, then they were far from safe on this new Earth. The Vanguard's secrets, whatever they were, they had to figure it out. The crew worked through the night, securing Scout 7 in a reinforced containment unit and poring over the data it had tried to collect. Their mission had taken on a new urgency. The mystery of the Solemn Vanguard was now a puzzle they needed to solve. The planet and the synthetic girl had to wait. As dawn approached, casting a pale light through the windows of the Requiem, Rin looked out at the stars. The challenges ahead were daunting, but she knew her crew was ready. Whatever secrets the Vanguard hid, whatever threats lay in wait, they would face them together. The Requiem's bridge buzzed with a cautious energy as stars streaked past the viewports, painting trails of light across the void. Commander Rin stood at the forefront, her eyes scanning the depth of space that stretched infinitely before them. The mission, as you guessed it, was to return to the Vanguard, retrieve critical data, and outmaneuver the encroaching mechanoid threat that was surely to arrive any time now. Beside Rin, Nicordus was intensely focused, hunched over a console as he worked diligently on one of the terminal interfaces. He muttered under his breath, mostly to himself, as he made adjustments. Boosting the drive efficiency by 7%, he said, his fingers moving quickly across the controls. We'll need every bit of speed we can muster. With the threats lurking out here, we need to be ready to bolt at a moment's notice. He paused, glancing up at Rin with a serious expression. I know the Requiem is fast, but remember it was heavily damaged when we found it, and we've only just begun the repairs. His tone underscored the urgency and precariousness of their situation. Falir chuckled from his station. Let's just hope your tweaks don't blow us apart, Nicordus. I've grown rather fond of staying in one piece. If looks could kill, Falir would have felt the sting of Nicordus's glare right about now. The intensity in Nicordus's eyes was almost palpable, as if he were shooting invisible lasers. Curie's voice, ever calm and metallic, chimed in from the speakers. All systems are almost optimal. The additional modifications have been integrated smoothly. Rin nodded, her gaze lingering on the distant stars. Good job, both of you, she said quietly. Let's keep the Requiem moving as swiftly as we can. We really can't risk a confrontation with the mechanoids, especially with the ship in its current condition. She paused, her expression somber as she added, Besides, we're critically short on hands, a mere 4 of us to manage a vessel meant for thousands. The crew, albeit small, had done wonders in patching up the Requiem, but it was nowhere near its former glory. Many systems remained offline or functioned only sporadically. Nacordus, particularly, faced a daunting task ahead. As they approached the coordinates of the Vanguard, with its twisted metal and shattered hull drifting in space, Rin ordered the crew to dim the lights and power down non-essential systems. The Requiem drifted silently through the debris field, a specter slipping through the Vanguard's graveyard once more, this time determined to find what they were looking for. Monger's stealth drive modifications are holding stable, Nacordus reported, eyes on his readouts. We're as invisible as we can be without actually being invisible. Monger, the Mechron crew member, moved to a terminal, its servos emitting soft whirs. I am scanning the Vanguard for the locations of its main databanks, it announced, the lights on its panel blinking rhythmically. The damage around it appears to be extensive, but the core chambers appear intact. There is hope yet for retrieving the data that we need. Rin turned, her expression a mask of resolve. Once we're aboard, we need to act quickly. Nacordus, you're coming with me. Nacordus scoffed as he replied, Oh, now I am with you. How about you go alone, Commander? Performing air quotes at her rank. Though Rin's irritation flickered across her face at Nacordus's jab, she managed to keep her composure. She pressed on, firm and focused. We're heading straight for the data cores. Falir, keep the engines warm and stay on alert for any trouble. Always, Falir replied, his tone light but underlined with the seriousness of their situation. Just mention it, and we jump away. The Requiem nestled itself against the scarred hull of the Vanguard, the magnetic clamps latching on with a subdued clunk once more. Rin and Nacordus suited up in their gear, the bulky suits a stark contrast to the sleek lines of their usual uniforms. Before stepping into the airlock, Rin paused by the synthetic girl's chamber for a quick check. Curie, observing closely, updated her. Her eyes are still open, but there's been no change in her consciousness. Rin nodded to Curie in acknowledgement. Then she and Nacordus proceeded into the airlock. As they entered, the space was filled with the hiss of depressurizing air, sealing them off from the rest of the ship. Remember, eyes sharp, we grab what we need and get out. No heroics, Rin instructed as the outer door opened, revealing the abandoned corridors inside the Vanguard. Understood, Commander, Nacordus replied sarcastically, his voice coming through the suit's radio. Though I must say, heroics aren't really our style anyways. It's mostly just dumb luck. Rin's eyes rolled back in annoyance. With a soft push, they floated into the darkness of the Vanguard, their helmet lights cutting through the black like sabers. The silence was oppressive, the only sound their own breathing and the occasional static crackle over the comms. As they maneuvered through the twisted corridors, Rin's mind was a whirlwind of memories from their last visit. Still, a tomb she muttered to herself, wishing something would have changed. After a couple of hours making their way to the center of the ship, mostly making use of the huge freight elevators and no gravity to get around, they found the data core room sealed off by a security blast door that had managed to withstand colossal damage from when the ship's shields failed. Rin spoke with a hint of awe in her voice as she surveyed the damage. Who has weapons that could penetrate a ship this size to its core? Monger interjected, ready to provide an analytical response. Well, I can compile a list if you like. Rin, however, didn't pause to consider the offer. Her question was rhetorical, more a reflection of her disbelief than a query for an answer. As they approached the blast door, Nacordus pulled out a compact device from his belt, along with a portable battery, noticeably bulkier than the one used previously. Let's see if the codes Curie provided us still work, he said, attaching both devices to the door's control panel. A moment passed, heavy with anticipation, before the door gave a reluctant groan and slid open, revealing the archives within. Rin allowed Nacordus to enter first, his flashlight cutting through the gloom, illuminating rows of dormant consoles. Let's download everything we can to the Requiem, she instructed, connecting a data transfer device into the mainframe console. Curie, are you getting this? Just then, Nicordus chimed in, a hint of curiosity in his tone. "Tell me, why didn't we do this last time?" Curie responded promptly. "Well, I wasn't here last time to interface directly with the Vanguard's databanks." "Point taken, Curie," Nicordus acknowledged with a nod. "Data transfer is initiated," Curie confirmed. "Receiving data now." Every second felt like a gamble as Rin watched the progress bar inch slowly forward. The heavy reality of their situation weighed on her with each passing moment. Here they were, isolated deep within the bowels of a once majestic ship, surrounded by silence that could be shattered at any moment. They still hadn't determined how the mechanoid scout had managed to board the Requiem, which made the possibility of hidden threats aboard the Vanguard all too real. This uncertainty hung in the air, a silent yet oppressive reminder that danger could lurk in any shadow. After what seemed to be ages, the last file transferred itself onto the Requiem. Rin gave the signal. "We've got what we came for. Let's get back to the ship." They retraced their steps, the silence of the Vanguard now filled with the soft echo of their movements. As they approached the airlock where they had entered, Rin's communicator crackled. "Falir here. We've got company. It looks like a ship, probably those mechanoids. You need to hurry." Rin's pulse quickened. "Understood. We're almost there." The darkness of space was a canvas of silence and stars, but beneath its quietude, the echo of ancient metal groaning under the stress of hurried footsteps filled the void. Rin and Nicordus propelled themselves through the gaps in the Vanguard's hull, their movements swift and precise, as they aimed for the safety of the Requiem. The looming presence of the mechanoid ship cast a burgeoning shadow, its intentions as dark as the void it sailed through. Inside the Requiem, Falir watched the approaching silhouette with a simmering anxiety. "Curie, I need you to calculate the fastest route out of here, and I mean yesterday fast," he commanded, his fingers poised over the navigation controls, ready to execute evasive maneuvers at a moment's notice. "Calculating now," the AI responded, her voice a stark contrast to the palpable tension on the bridge. The screen before Falir flickered as trajectories and potential paths lit up, weaving through the graveyard of ships like threads in a cosmic tapestry. Nicordus floated back into the airlock just after Rin, the magnetic seals on their suits hissing as they reconnected with the Requiem's interior. "You know, I never liked the idea of being a sitting duck, especially not in front of a bunch of tin cans." "We won't be sitting for long," Rin replied, stripping off her helmet and turning to the console. "Falir, get us moving. Curie, how's the data transfer?" "Complete and secure," Curie confirmed. "The information is now fully downloaded into the Requiem systems. We can go over them later." And with the battery pack and device still on board, it should be possible to wake the Vanguard back up, kind of like jump-starting a car, though we won't know the outcome until we try. Rin nodded, a brief flicker of relief passing over her features before her commander's resolve returned. "All right, let's not wait around to see what these mechanoids think of our hospitality. Falir, punch it." The Requiem's engines flared to life, a silent burst of power that sent them hurtling through the debris field. The enemy ship, evidently surprised by their sudden burst of speed, paused, a momentary hesitation that was all the human crew needed. "Monger, I want you on those scanners, looking for any more surprises," Rin ordered, her eyes fixed on the main viewport where the ship was now a receding shadow. "I'd like to know we're clear before we celebrate." Monger's mechanical voice responded, a slight modulation in its tone that could almost be mistaken for concern. "Understood. Scanning all frequencies and spectrums." As they put distance between themselves and the Vanguard, the crew's immediate tension began to ease, giving way to an analysis of their next move. Nicordus leaned against a console, watching the data Curie had integrated display across the screens. "Looks like we grabbed more than just a few dusty files." Rin joined him, peering at the projections of ancient technologies and forgotten fights. "Let's hope it's enough to keep us one step ahead. We need to understand what we just got our hands on first." The ship hummed beneath them, a soft vibration that spoke of power. Falir adjusted their course slightly, steering them around a particularly dense cluster of debris. "You know, it feels like we're tiptoeing through minefields here." "It's always been a minefield since we arrived here," Rin replied, her gaze not leaving the screen. "We're just now seeing the mines." Monger's voice interrupted their contemplation. "I have detected a residual energy signature. It's faint, but distinctly mechanoid. They might have left a tracker or a probe in the area. "Can you pinpoint it?" Rin asked, turning to face the Mechron. "It is being processed. I will have the exact location momentarily." Nicordus frowned, tapping a command into his datapad. "Let's make sure it's not on us. Curie, initiate a full spectral sweep of the Requiem." The AI's reply was immediate. "Initiating sweep. No foreign devices detected within or on the hull. We appear to be clean. However, the mechanoid scout is emitting on a quantum band I didn't catch earlier." "All right. Can you block that signal, Curie?" Rin asked. Curie responded with an affirmative. Rin exhaled sharply, a mix of relief and resolve knitting her brows together. "Keep us moving, Falir." As Falir navigated, his eyes remained vigilant, scanning the star-studded blackness that enveloped them. The Requiem, a lone speck of defiance in the vast cosmos, continued on its path, the echoes of the vanguard fading but the threat of what followed them growing ever more tangible. The Requiem's bridge was tense with anticipation. The first visual of the mechanoid fleet crawling into the sector, one by one through the star-studded black tapestry of space, punched a brief hiatus into the ship's habitual hum. This was it. The moment where strategies would be tested and mettle proven as more enemy ships dropped out of FTL. "Visuals on main, we are boxed in," Rin commanded, her voice as steady as the thrum of the engines behind the bulkhead. The main screen flickered, then displayed the imposing fleet of mechanoid ships, their metallic exteriors glinting ominously under the distant sun. Falir leaned closer to his console, analyzing the incoming data. 5 cruisers, 24 smaller escort ships, and what looks like a command vessel, he reported, his tone measured but underlying the urgency of their situation. Nicordus turned to Falir with a raised eyebrow. "Do you even know what their ships look like?" Falir shrugged and replied with a straightforward, "No," his nonchalance catching the group off guard. This elicited a burst of chuckles from everyone. Curie's synthesized voice filled the space with calculated calm. "The fleet's configuration suggests a tactical formation. They are prepared for both a significant offensive and a quick extraction." Nicordus scoffed lightly, shaking his head. "Well, aren't we popular? Let's not let them roll out the red carpet just yet." He turned to Rin, his expression serious despite his words. "Options? We make them think twice about coming any closer." Rin's response was immediate, decisive. She moved to the tactical console, her fingers flying over the controls. "Falir, ready the dark matter cannons. I know they can't exert their maximum total output, but it will have to do. Target their lead cruiser. We'll give them a little show of our own as long as the cannons hold." Nicordus replied, "We maybe have 3 shots. Better make them count." As Falir aligned the ship's weapons, the distant throb of the mechanoid fleet grew more pronounced, a low echo through the void that sent ripples of tension through the hull of the Requiem. The targeting systems locked on, and with a nod from Rin, Falir unleashed the first volley. Brilliant arcs of dark energy pulsed from the Requiem, streaking across space to collide with the mechanoid cruiser's shields, which flared brightly upon impact. "Their shields held, but that definitely got their attention," Falir noted, his eyes flicking back to his readouts. "Looks like they're slowing their approach, recalculating." Monger interjected, "There shouldn't exist shields that can block this weapon, even at this power output, at least not in this time period. Something is very wrong here." "Well, they did so for now. Let's keep them guessing." Rin watched the screen, her mind racing through scenarios. "Curie, feed me real-time updates on their shield integrity and fleet movements." Nicordus, meanwhile, was busy at another terminal, setting up what appeared to be a complex series of commands. "Setting up a little surprise," he murmured. "If they decide to push forward, they'll run right into a cluster of our torpedoes." Rin replied with a quick, self-deprecating smile. "We have torpedoes?" She paused, then added with a slight chuckle, "Never mind, I knew that." The mechanoid fleet, now wary of the small but potent Requiem, paused in their advance. Their next move was cautious, a strategic regrouping that allowed them to reassess the threat posed by the human ship. "Fire on my mark, now." Rin's command was sharp, a clear slice through the tension. With Nicordus' perfect execution, a swarm of torpedoes burst from the Requiem's sides, speeding towards the mechanoid fleet like a cloud of locusts driven by a storm. As they reached the ships, explosions rippled through space, causing visible disturbances in the mechanoid cruiser's shield arrays, yet their shield held. They didn't like that, Falir quipped, a tight grin breaking through as he monitored the effects of their assault. Several ships are breaking formation. That had to hurt them. Rin allowed herself a momentary smirk. Let's not celebrate yet. Curie analyzed the enemy. The disruption has not caused significant issues. We should reconsider. Rin responded with a measured calm. Hold it for now. Let's see what they do. They haven't even fired on us yet, and we only have 2 shots left. It would be impossible for us to take down that entire fleet. Nicordus looked up from his station, his eyes meeting Rin's. We may have bought some time, but there's more to their plan. We need to figure out what they're after. It's not just us. They want something from the Vanguard, or maybe we don't pose a threat in their eyes? Monger responded. They might receive data on the Requiem and possibly want this ship in one piece. Rin nodded, her gaze hardening. Then let's make sure they don't get it. Everyone, stay sharp. This standoff isn't over. It's just getting started. Outside, the void of space lay silent once more, the distant stars bearing witness to the unfolding drama, a clash of wills where the past and the future were intertwined in the shadow of the Vanguard. As the mechanoid fleet continued its advance, its metal behemoths casting large, ominous shadows against the backdrop of distant stars, the interior of the Requiem was a flurry of controlled chaos. Rin stood by the command console, her expression grim yet determined, as she coordinated their next moves. We don't have much left in the arsenal that will surprise them again, Nicordus pointed out, his voice tense as he reviewed the ammunition readouts. If they decide to push forward, it's going to get dicey. Dark matter particles in our tanks are basically vapor, and our backup positron weapons are offline. Falir adjusted the trajectory of the Requiem slightly, ensuring they remained within the operational shadow of the Vanguard. Maybe it's time to consider the last resort, he suggested, a slight hesitance in his tone. Rin turned, her eyes locking with Curie on the main display for a moment. Prepare the self-destruct sequence for the Vanguard. It's a relic now. Better it serves as our shield one last time. Monger interfaced with the ship's systems, its robotic efficiency poignant in the silence that followed Rin's order. Sequence preparation underway. I will require manual authorization to initiate, Curie. I will need your Vanguard codes. As the interface finally connected, an unexpected figure materialized on the main view screen. It was Commander Ares from the Vanguard, his digital form as imposing as any human commander. Curie Commander Creators, he intoned with a certain weight in his voice. I know what you plan to do. Allow us to confront the mechanoids one final time. Rin, taken aback by the sudden appearance and the realization, paused before asking, You're the Vanguard Commander AI? That's correct, he replied smoothly. We will be dispatching a contingent of automaton guardians to your ship. Please accept our parting gift. I regret we didn't have this conversation when you first boarded the Vanguard, but I had my reasons. Our positron cannons are ready, although our propulsion and targeting systems are offline. We can still aim manually. As a last resort, we can make our antimatter reactors go critical. When that happens, make sure you are not in this system, Commander. His words, laden with a mixture of resolve and solemnity, echoed through the command deck, leaving a profound impact on everyone present. Roger that, Commander. Let's hold that as our ace, Rin said, then switched her comms to broadcast on all channels. This is Commander Rin of the Requiem. We are prepared to defend our position. Cease your advance, or we will take drastic measures. The response from the mechanoid fleet was not verbal, but a slow, deliberate advance, their ships inching closer, a metallic tide rising inexorably against the lone human vessel. Looks like diplomacy's off the table, Nicordus muttered, his fingers ready at the controls for another barrage of their dwindling defenses. Drastic measures it is, Rin confirmed grimly. She turned to Ares on the view screen. Good luck, Commander. Ares nodded solemnly. Even if it's my first and last order from a creator, it's been an honor to finally receive one, not to mention fight besides you all. Good luck to you as well, Commander. For Earth. As the mechanoid ships drew closer, a palpable tension enveloped the Requiem. Every monitor and screen glowed with the stark reality of their situation. Falir watched the approaching enemies, his hand steady on the navigation controls, ready to execute the final escape maneuver once the Vanguard's self-destruct was engaged, if it couldn't hold them over with its cannons. When the mechanoid ships crossed an imaginary line in the system, the Vanguard sprang to life. Multiple cascading explosions erupted from the damaged ship as sections that were damaged beyond repair exploded. Then it aimed all of its positron cannons at the incoming fleet and fired. The barrage unleashed was monumental, the kind that would have been enough to level a couple of planets or topple multiple Empire fleets. "Monger status?" Rin asked, her voice a steady calm that belied the racing of her heart. Monger replied, "Mechanoid shields holding." And, "The Vanguard has its countdown initiated. T-minus 5 minutes to self-destruct," Monger reported, its voice devoid of emotion, a stark contrast to the heavy breaths of the crew. As the positron cannons of the Vanguard blazed fiercely, sending salvo after salvo into the advancing mechanoid fleet, Turan, another AI aboard the Vanguard, flickered to life. "I've never seen any single ship capable of withstanding our weapons, Ares. But these mechanoids, they make it feel like we're firing toy guns. It's fascinating, yet disheartening to witness their technological advancements." Blitz then interjected with an update. "Automatons have boarded the Requiem, Commander. Command has been transferred to AI Curie." Ares, considering the situation, replied to his AI crew, "You don't need to go down with the ship. You can transfer over to the Requiem." Turin, expressing the sentiment of the Vanguard's AI crew, spoke up resolutely. "That's a negative, sir. Curie has it under control. You know she was always the curious one, eager to meet our creators. She is all they need." This response highlighted a camaraderie and a shared sense of duty among the AIs, underpinning their resolve to see their mission through on the Vanguard, whatever the outcome. Nicordus glanced at the screen where the digital clock counted down the minutes. "Let's make sure we're not here to see the fireworks," he said. The Requiem maneuvered for a strategic withdrawal, angling away from the Vanguard while still using the ship as a shield against the mechanoid if they would fire back. If they had shields this powerful, what would their weapons be capable of? 2 minutes, Monger intoned, the announcement echoing through the ship's corridors, reaching ears that were tuned to the rhythm of survival. Rin stood resolute, her eyes fixed on the viewport, watching the Vanguard. It was more than a ship. It was a symbol of human resilience and ingenuity, and now it would serve as their protector one final time. 1 minute, Monger's voice again cut through the din. "Everyone brace for impact," Rin commanded, her hand hovering over the control to propel them into FTL as soon as the Vanguard exploded. The final seconds ticked by, each moment stretching long and taut as the space between heartbeats. Then, with a silent grace that belied its violent nature, the Vanguard erupted into a brilliant cascade of light and energy, its core reactors going critical and unleashing a destructive wave that swept through space, engulfing the advancing mechanoid ships. The shockwave hit the Requiem, rattling its frame, but Falir's skilled hands were already on the controls, the ship lunging forward into the safety of faster-than-light travel with their Trion drive, the destructive ballet of the Vanguard's demise visible only in their rear sensors. As the stars stretched into lines and then blurred into the tunnel vision of hyperspace, the crew of the Requiem allowed themselves a momentary relief. A breath held too long finally exhaled. They had survived, but at a cost they were only beginning to understand. Then, through the void, one final transmission was received from the solemn Vanguard. Ares' voice, steady and resolute, came over the comm. "We will be going first, one last time." The message, poignant and heavy with finality, echoed through the Requiem. As the transmission ended, a solemn farewell unfolded on the main viewport of the Requiem. Each AI aboard the Vanguard appeared, their digital forms rendering a salute, a gesture of respect and finality, to the crew watching silently. This poignant moment marked a heartfelt goodbye from the steadfast defenders willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. "Goodbye, friends," Curie replied, her metallic voice tinged with a hint of grief. "Maybe we'll meet again." Her words, though synthesized, carried the weight of genuine emotion, echoing the sorrow that lingered in the air. The Vanguard, the last of its secrets now just scattered debris in the void of space, had saved them. But the future was uncertain, the path ahead uncharted. Rin looked around at her crew, their faces lit by the ethereal glow of the console lights, a tapestry of determination and fatigue. The void of space, once a vista of quiet isolation punctuated by the distant pinpricks of starlight, now seemed a touch lonelier to the crew of the Requiem. Having navigated the fallout of the Vanguard's explosive farewell, the small vessel carved its way through the cosmos. Rin, her eyes ever forward, contemplated their path. The console before her flickered with incoming data, the remnants of the explosion providing a wealth of information that Curie was diligently analyzing. "What's our status, Curie?" Rin asked, her voice steady, masking the undercurrent of fatigue. "We are currently beyond the reach of the mechanoid fleet. All systems function within nominal parameters," the AI responded. "However, the residual energy signatures suggest there may be further mechanoid activity within this sector, or some of them escaped the blast like we did." "Curie," Rin asked, "you think the planet survived that explosion?" "Negative," Curie replied. "Okay, then send a message to Earth that the mechanoids showed up. Tell them, New Earth is lost, mechanoids." "They will get the idea." Nicordus, overseeing the repair of some minor system damages, grunted in response. "Of course, they wouldn't just let us waltz away. Nothing's ever that simple." Falir, his hands deftly gliding over the navigation panel, let out a low chuckle. "Simple went out the airlock the day I signed up for this gig, Nicordus. But hey, dancing through danger? That's just another Tuesday for us." A couple of uneventful weeks drifted by, the silence of space enveloping the ship. During this quiet time, Monger remained vigilant, its sensors tirelessly scanning the cosmos around them. Then, breaking the monotony, Monger announced, "I am detecting a faint signal. It is not from the mechanoids. It appears to be a distress call." Rin perked up at this. "Maybe it's a trap? Can we trace it?" "It is weak, but I can enhance the signal," Monger replied, its robotic efficiency a comfort in the unending uncertainty. As the signal clarified, a voice, cracked and weary, filtered through the speakers. "This is Captain Lauren of the starship Halcyon. We are in need of immediate assistance. Coordinates attached." Rin exchanged a glance with Falir. "Plot a course, Falir. Let's see who's out there needing our help. It might just be our good deed for the day." Falir nodded, inputting the coordinates into the nav computer. The Requiem adjusted its trajectory, the stars shifting as they set a new course. Nicordus watched, his expression thoughtful. "You think it's wise, heading into a potential trap? We're not exactly in prime fighting shape." "It's a calculated risk," Rin replied. Nicordus shot back, "You can't even do math properly." Ignoring Nicordus once more, Rin continued, "But it's not in our nature to ignore a call for help. Besides, we might gain allies, or at the very least, some good karma." Falir quipped, "Or loot. Don't forget the good old loot." The journey to the Halcyon's last known coordinates was tense, each crew member silently mulling over their situation. The Requiem's sensors were on high alert, sweeping the inky blackness for any hint of deceit or danger. When they finally arrived, the scene was less a battle and more a graveyard. The Halcyon, a mid-sized alien-looking freighter, was adrift, its hull scarred and pitted from what looked like a pirate attack. No other ships were in sight, but the damage was recent. "Looks like we missed the party," Falir noted grimly as they approached. "Let's just hope we're not too late to help the survivors," Rin added, her tone sober as they prepared to dock. The docking procedure was smooth, a small grace in the otherwise grim tableau. Rin led a small party aboard the Halcyon, followed by a few of their newly acquired automatons controlled by Curie, Nicordus, and Monger flanking her as they entered through the airlock. The interior of the freighter was dim, emergency lights casting long shadows down the narrow corridors. They moved cautiously, Nicordus's hand resting on his sidearm, while Monger's sensors flickered, parsing the environment. In the command module of the Halcyon, they found Captain Lauren, an older-looking male, his face etched with lines of worry and relief. "Thank heavens," he breathed as they entered. "I wasn't sure anyone would come." "We're here now," Rin reassured him. "What happened?" "Pirates," Lauren explained, his voice shaky. "They hit us hard, took what they could. We managed to drive them off, but not without cost. Half my crew is injured. We're running on fumes here. Nicordus stepped forward, his usual jests set aside. Let's get your ship stable first, then we can talk about getting you and your crew to safety. As Nicordus, Curie, and Monger began to assist with repairs, Rin spoke with Lauren, learning of nearby sectors and the movements of various alien factions that might prove crucial for their continued survival. The Requiem, while powerful, still needed repairs in a shipyard if they wanted to get home. Later back aboard the Requiem, the crew absorbed this new information, the potential for alliances forming in Rin's mind. All this new information was a goldmine for them. The cosmos was vast, and their journey was far from over. As they left the Halcyon behind, now stable and set to meet with a convoy for further aid, the Requiem once again set its course among the stars, the unknown sprawling before them, as full of peril as it was of promise. But that Triverse story will have to be told another day. If you've stuck with me up to this point, a heartfelt thank you. I'd also like to take a moment to remind you that my entire channel is dedicated to the Triverse and its enthralling Mechron mechanoid saga. While many of the stories stand alone, allowing you to dive in at any point, crafting these narratives takes about 4 or 5 days each, so your patience is greatly appreciated. If you find yourself enjoying what you see, consider exploring more of my videos. Each one, in its own unique way, weaves together more of the overarching story I'm telling.